The next step for the iRacing Online Championship HPP Simulation GT Series is none other than Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve, Montreal, here in Canada. For the Berryman products, 2 hours of Montreal. Join us for some prototype and GT action. We'll be bringing it to you live here on RaceSpotTV and iRacingLive in just a few moments' time. But first, a couple of messages from our sponsors, and we'll get right back to the action with the grid as qualifying gets underway. HPP Simulation products, the absolute best you can get in your pedal prototype and all sorts of your hydraulic pedals for your iRacing or any simulation really services, but of course we hope for iRacing. Anyways, here we are going to go as qualifying wraps up here. We are going to go look at our grid as we've got 20 cars here today for Montreal. We're going to, of course, lead this off in the prototype division. The number 15 car is none other than George Sandman. He's been up top all season long. Drew Reinhardt is going to be following in second with Rory Rundrum in third and James Krula in fourth with Corey Rowland in fifth. And then going into our GT division, it is Jason DeVries. He's got a 135 flat over Jared Jewell with a 135.5. Austin Harris is going to be starting in third. Robert Jackman in fourth. Brian Bennett fifth. James Fitzpatrick is in sixth. Christopher Hacker will be starting in seventh in the GTs, with eighth going to Phil Mashaga, ninth going to Benjamin Perez, 10th going to Doug Lyerly, and 11th going to Chris Allen, and 12th going to Thomas Pomatico. So 2 fields here today for our 2 hours here at Montreal. Montreal, you don't normally see sports car action here, but it should be a good race nonetheless. Anyways, of course, I'm Cameron Walsh, joined as always by Rachel Whiteford and covered, of course, by Hugo Lewis. And we are going to be getting to racing action in just one moment's time. But before then, Rachel, well, Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve, it's you wouldn't necessarily think sports cars, but it could work here.
Well, good evening, Cam. It certainly could indeed. It's going to be a great race tonight, of course. A tight and twisting street track here. Temporary circuit on the island in the St. Lawrence Seaway here in Montreal. These guys, well, they're on an island metaphorically and physically. In terms of the racetrack, well, there is only so far you can use. There's a lot of concrete walls that are very, very close to the racetrack. So one other thing we actually have for this race is there is a safety car rule in place, Cam. If we have a track blockage, expect the race control team deploy that safety car, get the field bunched up, so we could have some restarts happening in this race, which will be super exciting.
Well, we sure absolutely could, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see something happening on track with these prototypes going past these GT cars. The fastest prototype is a 130. Fastest GT in qualifying trim was 135, so I would expect, and probably if they're running 136s, maybe 15-20 laps before we see the prototype cars going at least past the leader GT cars. But how we'll go here as the cars are taking. Now we are to the grid. We are, of course, starting the grid here on the backstretch, a very, very long backstretch, as that'll get you back to the start-finish line. And then, of course, there's a quick little chicane, flip right and then left, and then they will get you, of course, to the start line. This chicane, though, Rachel, it should be relatively interesting, as it has at least an open wheel nomenclature called the Wall of Champions, of course, for all the Formula One incidents that happened there in one day. But here for sports cars, though, I expect they're going to be taking a relatively different line through that particular chicane.
Yeah, they certainly are, Cam. It's going to be a tricky one, of course. That chicane is... oh, this is actually the NASCAR layout we have here, so perfect for sports cars. Those curbs are a bit taller. Can always be a bit of trouble for the GT cars, or the open-wheel cars even, but it's going to be an exciting one here for these guys as we run down the back straightaway here. Prototype field moving off. GT field is about to start moving, Cam. Take it away.
Yeah, and, well, George Sandman all in his left foot now as they are working their way around. Just one more time here. They are working their way to the track as it'll be relatively George Sandman, though, as it appears that my camera controls have all screwed up. But George Sandman, though, he takes the left, he takes the right. He will look to get to the field now, and the prototype cars are getting underway as there they go. They will take the green for the Berryman Products 2 hours in Montreal here at Canada. And, of course, George Sandman, he will take it away. George Sandman leading over Drew Reinhardt, Rory Rundrum, and James Krugel very close behind with Corey Round just a little further back there. They come through this first section then, and as they start their way towards corner number 3, we will look to the GT cars. Jason DeVries and his Audi against Jared Jewell, Austin Harris, and Robert Jackman, your front four. They're bunched up here, and the GT cars ready. They're waiting. And they're waiting for that green to get called out. And there they go. Green flag already 3 wide as Austin Harris tries to jump the start there. Jason DeVries is left standing at the guns. And ooh, they make contact. And how's Harris already going into the inside? Well, as the start of the GT field of the race here, I'm sure Race Control is probably not going to be too enthused about that one, Rachel.
Oh, wow, Cam. Absolutely not. That's an incredible start we had there. And I think we can safely say that the Audi there at the front, I believe that was number 40, it's got Austin Harris. He definitely jumps that start because he goes super early. And, well, comes back on track, and the leader seems to make contact with him there. Not sure deliberate or not, but big contact there. He's in the middle of the track, rolls forwards, and makes contact with several of the cars. Bigger incident. What a start to the race.
Well, as we get underway here, the prototypes are beginning their way to finish their first lap here as they're going down the backstretch, looking at George Sandman now as he has got nobody behind him but Drew Reinhardt. These two cars, the 69 prototype and the 15 prototype, as they cross the start-finish line. Just like that, though, it already looks like Drew Reinhardt might be catching up under this straight here. But this first section, Rachel, it is so very vital to get it right. You can get it so wrong so many different ways. You can overspeed and underspeed and get on the throttle too much in these first 3 or 4 corners here at Canada. But it's one of those things where just looking at how everything goes, for a prototype car, it might not necessarily be that hard having all that downforce, but for a GT car, as we're seeing, they go through the chicane for the first time. Jason DeVries, he's going to lose his lead after he has an issue going through the chicane, and the lead is going to go to Jared Jewell for lap 1. But you can just see this first section here as we watch the GT cars go through how difficult it might be.
Oh, certainly is, and we know the 46 still running there. That is the car, of course, of Austin Harris. He's just got the pit lane, so lengthy repairs for him, we expect. That car was still pretty quick. Up front, yeah, Jared Jewell, Robert Jackman, and Jason DeVries there, your top 3 cars. You're having a great race at the moment, really good positioning. You've got some space over the rest of that field cam, which is absolutely vital for these guys. They've got clean air, you can run their own race, they're not dealing with a pack of traffic.
No, not at all. And going through the GT field, there is a prototype car that started in the back. Douglas Beard, he'll be making his way through the GT traffic here at Montreal for our 2 hours of Montreal, brought to us, of course, by Berryman Products, as the GT cars are, as the prototype cars, I guess I should say, are coming across for lap number 2. They're going on to lap number 3. George Sandman already hitting the times. He already put a lap down that was 0.5 of a second off of his qualifying time, and Drew Reinhardt, he's having issues, Rachel, catching up with him as he seems to almost lose the rear. But that prototype car of Drew Reinhardt not necessarily able to make a dent and keep up with George Sandman, which has been pretty much a story all season long.
It certainly has been. George Sandman in a class of his own in this Corvette Daytona prototype field, of course. And number 15 HPP Products, Chevrolet, doing a great job, of course, but just so fast, Cam. He is flawless. Never puts a foot wrong. His only issues have been in lap traffic.
Yes, and of course we've had some other issues that you can't really help with, but you know what, hopefully everything will stay nice and stable for him as the GT cars are making their way for lap number 3. Already a relatively massive gap between the prototypes and the GT cars. Of course, the GT field was called by the race control as to when they could go. That's why I think that the GT cars had such a great jump on each other. But overall, though, the GT traffic, well, Jared Jewell, Robert Jackman, and Benjamin Perez, all three German-manufactured cars, as the Audi and the Mercedes of Brian Bennett and Christopher Hacker are looking through. You have to go all the way back to Jason DeVries to get to the Audi. But for the most part, though, Rachel, these GT cars are working their way through Montreal and making quick work of it.
Yeah, they certainly are. Cam, it's a great race for them at the moment, but well, the traffic's going to be an issue pretty quickly this time around, of course. The prototype field went a lot quicker than the GT field. They had a big gap, a lot of time really between the two fields going, so which means your prototype field will start lapping GT traffic a lot sooner, as much as 5 laps before they normally would. So, well, these GT cars are still going to be fairly bunched up when the prototypes reach them, and well, these corners are all slow speed corners where really the Daytona prototype, especially in this first half of the lap, they haven't got a massive speed advantage, so it's going to be tricky going.
Well, absolutely, and well, it's going to be a lot of tiptoeing, I think, around these. I'm trying to figure out, watching Douglas Beard, exactly where these prototype cars are going to be able to make passes going into slow corners, so probably corner number 1 and corner number 13 for sure. But for the most part here, it just seems like these prototype cars might have to be sitting half throttle, waiting and waiting for the opportunity to pass. As watching through here the rest of the field, Jason DeVries, well, he qualified first in his Audi, and now he is stuck back in what is going to be 12th position overall, but is going to be 6th position in the, actually, yeah, 6th position in the GT category, so he'll have to make his way through as they are working their way through the sort of this middle section here. There's a lot of quick left and rights, as you can imagine, here at Montreal, being basically a street circuit. But Rachel, we're also seeing how these prototypes are taking it. Corey Roon, well, he is in that number 10 prototype. He is stuck right behind James Kruhela, and I'm not sure if he might have picked up a little bit of front-end damage in that unacceptable racing prototype, but if he did, that is going to be probably a bear to drive around for quite a while.
And it will be. A few cars have some minor damage, of course, from that initial incident we saw there, including the number 1 car there of Jason DeVries. He had contact with the car of Austin Harris. A number of cars also had a few moments. I don't think there'll be many cars, Cam, that come home at the end of this one without acquainting themselves more familiarly with the wall.
Yeah, I was going to say, if not the wall, possibly another car, possibly a prototype working their way through. But overall, though, let's just see here. Perhaps let's try and see where these prototype cars are making their speed. Where is George Sandman, that number 15? He is just working his way through the hairpin right now. As they're going to the right, they're going through their right-hander. This is almost towards the end of the lap here, and let us see as he works his way towards the final chicane. If we can go on board with a quick lap of George Sandman here, probably going to be around a 130 bracket, I would say. And we'll see here just exactly what it's like to be in a prototype car tackling this Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And, of course, we'll be right back with the commentary. But for right now, enjoy the sounds of that C7R Corvette Daytona prototype. can just see just how these cars have to attack these corners. These guys are going over the curbs. They are being, I don't think there's a lot of tiptoeing going on, Rachel. But that number 15 Daytona prototype seems to be hooked up as we normally see it. And of course, that Orion Race Team car doing very well. Of course, sponsored by HPP pedals. Perhaps, Rachel, that's why he's going so darn fast around this track.
Absolutely, Cam. He must be using those HPP pedals to the full advantage, of course, giving him great braking and very positive throttle application. So, always great to have the best kit possible for your sim racing. HPP products can give you that.
Well, absolutely, and of course, though, the Daytona prototypes, of course, if you're unfamiliar, perhaps watching somehow outside of the United States, which I can honestly say, for the European time zone, perhaps not the friendliest. It's 9 o'clock here on the East Coast, so I can only imagine, Rachel, where it is in the United Kingdom, but for what we're doing, though, to say the very least, you might not necessarily be familiar with the Daytona prototypes. These are the much more American standardized prototype cars, and, well, they've got quite a beastly Corvette engine in it, and quite a lot of downforce comparatively, and to what your normal GT car would be doing. It's, how would we put it? Instead of it being more of a detuned Le Mans prototype, it would be more like a upgraded GT car, or maybe even a touring car.
Oh, absolutely, Cam. It's quite a rather detuned prototype, really. Really designed for the old Can-Am series, I believe, and, well, still running, really, in the current IMSA WeatherTech series as one of their prototype cars, but it's great car. Really cool handling, actually. Almost like a prototype, almost like a GT car. Kind of half and half. Very sports car feeling. Love driving these things.
Yes, best of both worlds, and George Sandman there, he's dealing with the best of both worlds of what we have is he is, of course, in his prototype car, and he is dealing with Phil Mishaga in the BMW, as he'll go to the inside there. His Corvette will slide along, and then he'll actually try and overtake a Mercedes as well, and at the same time, Mishaga looking possibly to the inside, getting very hearty on the brakes in this section, almost clipping the prototype, but he will sit in front of the Mercedes, and Mercedes of Paul Wildridge, he will counter immediately as they head towards the hairpin, corner number 12, as they are working their way through this. Oh boy, Rachel, GT traffic already trying to take advantage of the prototype traffic. Prototype traffic already getting held up a little as we are only on lap number 8.
Yeah, we certainly are. Oh, bit of contact there with Phil Misaga. And I believe that is Paul Wildridge. That's the number 67 and 77 cars. Contact there coming out the hairpin. That's one of the Mercedes and one of the BMWs running in your GT division there. Little bit of elbows out at this stage of the race, which is quite early, and both those cars have some minor damage on them. Here comes Drew Reinhardt, second place prototype car. This is where they have their advantage, Cam, of course. Very similar speeds to the GT cars in the corners. But on straights here, this is where they have their big advantage. Bigger horsepower, much more aerodynamic bodywork, so they're much faster in a straight line. Of course, they're the Daytona prototype. They're designed for running 24 hours of Daytona. They're slippery.
Yes, like bullets going through the air as Drew Reinhardt makes his way across that GT traffic, but Rory Windrum, he hasn't necessarily been able to make his way through here. He has got to sit through this intersection here, and if we go on board with Rory Windrum, I'm sure we'll get a good picture of these GT cars that are stuck to the front of him, and he has the Audi of Thomas Pomatico. He was able to clear him going through the front stretch here, but right now perhaps he could try exactly what was tried before. Ooh, Phil Mishaga almost tried to pull out in front of him there as Mishaga. Well, he seems to have the speed going through, but overall, though, the two GT cars are going to go side by side once again here. Mishaga has been trying for the second lap now to get past, and that's going to cost him. Perhaps the Audi of Pomatico is going to come in through, but Paul Wildridge, though, boy, he's hanging stout in there, Rachel, in that Mercedes, which seems to be a bit wider than the BMW, but not necessarily the same cars. They're both from a German manufacturer, but they're quite different beasts, even though they might look a little alike.
Well, all three of these cars are German, actually. Audi, BMW, Mercedes. It's quite the German fest here. We could be having Oktoberfest early. It's only June, well, May, in fact.
Hey.
So, but no, the Mercedes, much bigger, much heavier feeling car. A BMW, also front-engined, rear-wheel drive, of course. That's where the similarities end. Feels much lighter. Mercedes a bit faster in a straight line. The Audi, well, that's a lot better at the slow-speed corners. Those front-engine cars, Cam, they're great in the fast corners. What do we have? Not very much of here at Montreal. high-speed corners. So expect the the mid-engine cars like the Audi to be doing well in this race. In fact, they are P1 and P2 at the moment. Actually, that's both Mercedes, so ignore me.
Well, Benjamin Perez, at some point he must have lost that second place. I could have swore Benjamin was in second at some point, but it is two Mercedes, and they are nose to tail, Jared Jewell and Robert Jackman, as our Audi, who qualified in first, Jason DeVries, he has worked his way back up to fourth in the GT class, as he has passed Brian Bennett. As, Jason DeVries, he is working his way up there, perhaps carrying just a little bit of damage, but that GT car of his, it's mid-engined Audi, of course, as they're working their way through the Audi the Audi R8LMS. I was trying to think of the letters that come after the R8, but either way, though, it seems like he's able to take the chicane just a little bit faster than Perez, and perhaps Jason DeVries is going to be close enough to possibly take it going into turn number one. We'll think better of it, and I can understand why, Rachel. That BMW seems to always be carrying a lot of front-end downforce compared to its GT competitors.
It certainly is, and that's a major advantage, or disadvantage in some certain circumstances, of course, and it's something you're going to have to really balance here, of course. We're just having a look at Benjamin Perez there. He is being caught by Jason DeVries in his Audi there, so could be seeing a pass for the third step of the podium here. DeVries having a good race. He did lose a lot of track position early on, don't forget. He had that initial contact in the first corners with Austin Harris, but recovering well. He's going to look to move on to the podium at this stage. Can he catch Jackman and Jewell? Well, they're only 3-4 seconds at the road at this stage, so everything's all to play for.
Everything indeed, and we see somebody coming into the pits. It's the pink prototype of Unacceptable Racing. It's number 24, as he is coming down, as we are watching, of course, side-by-side action from Perez and DeVries. DeVries is snaking his way through in his Audi through, as he will take the hairpin, and they are going to start their way once again already. Montreal, for all of the slow turns, Rachel, this is actually an extraordinarily fast track. I mean, a minute and 30 some odd second lap time as they're going through Casino right now, and they're going to make their way towards turn 12s and 13s here, but it looks like DeVries is going to be able to make that pass stick, and he'll possibly break away through the chicanes, and now he's got Robert Jackman and Jared Jewell as Jason DeVries works his way once again to the top of the bottom step of the podium, I guess I should say.
It certainly will be. That's a great move he makes there. A very easy fashion there for that Audi, of course, one of the faster cars. We see that pink prototype heading out of pit road there. We spoke about him a moment ago. That's the 24 car. James Krahula, he is on track now, so he's going to have to get past your GT leaders. It's going to be tricky for these guys, but watch him now in the next few sequence of corners, Cam. Really tricky for him to get past these GT cars in these slow stop-start corners. They just do not have the advantage.
No, not at all, and perhaps that prototype car is going to be having an issue or two getting their way around. I mean, there are some fair positions to make a pass, as we saw from George Sandman earlier, but you never know here. Perhaps Krahula looking at it, coming through here up to this chicanes. This is, of course, is going to be turn 5 going into turn 6 and 7. No, actually 8 and 9. What am I talking about? We are in 8 and 9 as they're heading their way towards the pits hairpin here. They're going under a small...
Oh, Cam, sorry, just have a quick look at Jared Jewell there and Jackman. They are really close here. It looks like we could have a pass for the GT lead.
Oh, absolutely, and perhaps here, looking at the speed differences between Jackman and Jewell, drafting maybe perhaps a little bit affecting here as well. No, it's not going to happen as Jackman backs out, and rightfully so. This is only lap 11 of a 2-hour race here, and to think, you know, when you see lap 11 and some other tracks, that could really be some late race here, even starting to look into pits. But here at Montreal, Rachel, it has only been 16, 17 minutes, and we're already hitting lap 12. I mean, we're going to be hitting quite a few laps here, and Robert Jackman, well, he's in prime position here to make that pass. And looking at James Krahula, well, James Krahula and actually George Sandman, they're going to be working their way through this front-running GT field and possibly this lap, next lap's time.
Yeah, they certainly could be, and wow, this is getting really tight. Of course, we keep talking about the speed difference all race, Cam. It is a major factor. These cars just are not fast enough. We're 12 laps in. We've got GT cars being lapped by your leaders. Look how slowly they're going though. George Sandman is only up to P12 in your GT field. That's not a huge progress. He's passing another car now. That is Brian Bennett, I believe, he just passed. He's moving up to Perez, actually. It's Benjamin Perez in P10, so really not making very quick progress. In fact, he's catching the 24 car in his own class.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at through how George Sandman is attacking this, well, he's got that little bit of clean air here, but for the most part, though, it is just nose-to-tail traffic for these prototype cars. And Drew Reinhardt is also looking the way through, and Warrior Windrum is also looking through. And ooh, I believe James Fitzpatrick, he almost had a good nose in on Christopher Hacker in your GT field. The number 30 Mercedes and the number 98 BMW. They're getting passed by Rory Windrum. And, well, if you're looking out the front windscreen of Rory Windrum, you've got cars on both sides. You'll have to dive just to the inside of that Mercedes before he will manage to clear it, and they will start making their way through the chicane, and he is still locked in on Drew Reinhardt here. Some clean air between the 70 and the 69, and to say at the very least here, these GT cars and these prototype cars, they seem to be playing, Rachel, fairly well here together. Is just in the front of James Kruhela, our front-running prototype car, is at least in relative to where the GT leaders are. And ooh, Robert Jackman has a massive wiggle, and Kruhela equipped to try and make a move on that, but boy, Jackman, that was so very close. He almost spun that Mercedes out.
He certainly did. Very, very close. You've got to be very aware, but of course he's trying to race to stay on the lead lap here in your GT prototype field even. That Corvette Daytona prototype really wanted to stay on the lead lap ahead, well, of the guy right behind him. That is your leader, George Sandman. Obviously the class of the field here in the HPP Simulation Series. Flawless driving every week. He's normally our winner, so lapping his own traffic, that's pretty impressive. We do know, of course, Cam, these guys are running full fuel for the prototypes. We know we have an 80% fuel limit for your GT division. That means they are not going to make the full hour. Will it be 40 minutes? Possibly. Looking at maybe 45 to 50 minutes, so expect to see the traffic about the same time on pit road. That could cause some major conflict of interest.
Well, certainly could, as George Sandman goes on the inside of James Kruhela for the chicane. The final chicanes, turn 12 and 13 here, as they are working their way out on another lap. Excuse me, Zoe. Jeez. Hopefully that didn't come on through, but George Sandman working his way. He's just trying to sneak possibly nosing on Jared Jewell. He's not going to be able to get it, though. Jared Jewell, he's just covering his bases here, as, he's going to have an easy opportunity here, actually, to allow George Sandman to go past before they hit corner number 3 and 4. And Rachel, that was so very important that George Sandman was able to get by without having a big issue. But James Kruhela, he is still waiting to get by in that unacceptable racing HPP, though he is now officially 1 lap down.
He certainly is, and well, whilst Cam deals with the menagerie that's happening in his office, it seems like there's cats, dogs, and possibly flying pigs. But yeah, GT field at the moment having a great run. Jared Jewell there is in P6 at the moment, so 6 overall. Yeah, he's ahead of Kruhela in the prototype car, so that's theoretically full position. He did start ahead of him, so this is what we've got in terms of a higgledy-piggledy race setup here with this street circuit field cam, really causing a lot of mixing of the classes. We talked about this, the speed difference being so minimal here. Really, this main straight we're on here now with Kruhela, this is the only chance for these guys to stretch their legs in the prototype field. This is the only time they get to use that advantage, so unfortunately, if you can't pass someone earlier in the lap, this is your only opportunity. You can lose a lot of time to your leader.
Well, you absolutely can, and James Kruhela, well, he has managed to absolutely miss the last chicane, and he is going to have to give that time back, almost allowing Jared Jewell the opportunity to make a pass back. That would cost him a lot of time, Kruhela, but he doesn't, though, and, well, either way, though, Kruhela, he does manage to give that time back. The marshals are happy, though he's picked up a little bit of front-end damage, and just looking through here, well, you've got Jason DeVries, you've got Robert Jackman, and then you have the car of Jared Jewell. Those are your front GT cars, and Austin Harris has been, black flag has been placed for Austin Harris. It looks like he's got a little bit of front end damage there. Not quite sure, Rachel, where that Audi picked up the damage, but he was already well behind, quite a few laps down, and I believe actually that's the damage from the very beginning of the race.
I was going to say, that is Austin Harris, the car who's been in the pits since the start of the race. Viewers might remember he was, anyone who's just joined us, he was involved in, well, he essentially jumped to the start. for your GT class, and ended up 3 wide with your leaders at the line. Himself and Jason DeVries had a difference of opinions, shall we say, Cam, and he ended up losing out on that one. So well, karma has an effect, it seems, but he's been black flagged and brought back to pit road, so we could be asking him to park.
Yes, well, he's in his pit stall, and either way, we're going to go look to some action on the track. It's a BMW of Benjamin Perez and Brian Bennett. The Audi are fighting their way through here, and that Audi, that number 58, he is going to be trying to make his way right on through with the Duval iRacing team here, as that number 58 Audi possibly going to be able to pull along. No, he does not. The BMW just too good under braking. Let's see, perhaps the Audi getting under pressure, under the throttle there, could put some pressure on the Benjamin Perez piloted BMW, the number 3, as ultimately there, Rachel, it's a BMW versus the Audi. But for the most part, though, the 2 Mercedes seems to be having the upper hand here, but that's not to say that Jason DeVries hasn't been able to catch up. He is closing in on Robert Jackman.
Yeah, he certainly is. Real advantage coming here to DeVries. We're going to see what he can do in terms of on-track racing here. He's going to have to try and find something. If you can't get past him on track, well, he has got the option of the pit cycle, so you might want to come in early for that first stop. We do know that the Audi's a lot smaller than the Mercedes, so it can be tricky to pass, but not impossible, so we'll have to see what he can pull off here. It could be a good draft pass if he can stay in range for the back straight or the start-finish straight, but we'll have to see. That Audi can be a little quicker through this final hairpin turn 10.
Yes, of course, that mid-engine power kind of throwing it just a little bit onto the rear as, well, he's coming through, and perhaps a little earlier on the throttle for Jason DeVries. Maybe, maybe not, as Robert Jackman there is still looking right in front of Robert Jackman in that very Canadian painted, well, Canadian Mercedes, as, well, they're working their way towards the chicane now. Just a little bit of a speed difference, maybe 3 miles an hour as they head towards 12 and 13. They'll take the curb, because that Audi doesn't necessarily like curbs. As somebody spun out there, Austin Harris is. He is now sitting just right on the exit to the chicane. That car, perhaps something's busted in on that as the field goes by, but he's off the track by quite a ways, and well, everyone's just continuing around. Yeah,
that car appears to be stopped. They could be having technical issues. We might see a safety car here. Not sure about this. They're definitely stopped on the racetrack. No signs that there's able to go away under his own power, so we will have to see what will happen here. I mean, this was a bit early for a pit cycle in terms of the safety car, but it could change the dynamic of a race if it happened. Really not sure what's happening with him. He's still sitting there, so might need track workers to help him get away.
Like old Formula 1 cars, we'll leave him there for now, but we'll keep an eye out on that number 46 of Austin Harris. As looking through now, we are still looking at the battles here between Benjamin Perez and Brian Bennett. Brian Bennett, he has just been working and hounding that car of Perez for quite some time now, perhaps going into the hairpin. Rachel, this is the closest as he has ever been. He's going to pull alongside going into the hairpin, and that Audi is going to try an outside pass, and Rachel, I think he's done it.
I think he might have it. He does. Ooh, yes, he does. He has the run. Great move there by Brian Bennett. Awesome pass.
Yeah, so that was good on the outside. You don't normally see an outside pass there. They're only quite a few seconds away from Jason DeVries, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds between DeVries, who's in third right now, and Brian Bennett, as they're working their way through the final 12 and 13 now, as they're going to be starting yet another lap here at the beautiful circuit Guillaume-Villeneuve, as we are working lap 17 for the, well, 18 for the prototypes, lap 19 for the 19 for the prototypes, 18 for the GT cars. It's easier when the words are put into a proper sentence and said in such a way that it's easily understood to those of the English-speaking words, but of course we'll just try and not make it easy. You know, being an upstate New Yorker, we try not to allow these things to happen. But Jason DeVries, though, he is hounding Robert Jackman. That number 8 Mercedes has that little Audi nipping at the heels here. That number 1 car is right locked in toe and step with that Mercedes. He might be going to the inside. And it does look
Cam.
like
Sorry, just listening into race control, actually. They're just making encouragement to the 46 to move off the racetrack, which he has now done.
There we
the blockage
go.
has been cleared. turned himself around, he will be rejoining the racetrack. So, not sure what's going on with that issue, of course. Clearly underway on his own power now, so no safety car likely to occur. But Harris has been in the wars today. He's really incurred the wrath of race control. Not sure how long he'll be circulating, but we're looking back at the Frontier class. Jewel has quite the gap now over Robert Jackman. Jackman, of course, is being chased, but has just been passed by De Vries. So good move by Jason De Vries there. He's trying to catch your leader, Jewel. So recovering to where he qualified, in fact. Jason De Vries, he had a great car in qualifying, single car trim. We'll see if he can catch up to the current leader. Be a great move for him.
Yes, and of course the difference in the qualifying times for De Vries was almost half of a second. So De Vries possibly a little slow because of the damage there, but he was actually 0.5 of a second faster than Jackman that last time by. Of course, fast lap was when Jason De Vries managed to make that move, which we saw, as now he's only got Jared Jewell up ahead. That gap is going to be nothing but 3.5 seconds as it currently stands here on the Audi, or here on the timing screen that I have, as so of course that could probably be very wrong, but to say though, Brian Bennett, he managed to make that pass in that number 58 Audi, and he is leaving Benjamin Perez just a little bit behind there. He's managed to get quite a few gap, and perhaps Robert Jackman in a couple of laps time is going to have yet another competitor on his rear end in the GT category. So GT class providing quite a good race, to say the very least.
Yeah, it certainly is, Cam. GT class, certainly the interesting field in this one. The bigger class, of course, we only have 6 prototypes, so not a huge amount going out there. They do spread out very quickly, but as it stands, your GT class, really exciting racing we're having. We've got some 2 wide here. James Fitzpatrick there in the number 98 car. He is chasing Christopher Hacker there in the number 30. We hope he isn't hacking, of course, but I'm going to be sure. But that's Mercedes being chased down right now by Patrick in the BMW. We've seen a lot of BMW and Mercedes fighting tonight, Cam. Those 2 cars very evenly matched, so always good to see what happens with those cars.
Yes, very good indeed to see. Oop.
Your leader in the field being impeded by Harris. He's still out on track and has already slowed down Jewel twice so far on this lap after we let him catch him. So I don't know what's going on here, but this is very strange.
Blue flag rules do apply, but Austin Harris is currently sitting out there, and that is, well, it's going to benefit nobody but Jason De Vries and Robert Jackman. Jared Jewell, I'm sure it doesn't look like he's being super impatient, but that number 46 Audi carrying that quite a bit of front-end damage after that that opening incident between himself and De Vries is Austin Harris. I'm not necessarily sure if maybe he jumped the gun or perhaps he just had it on everybody else's. There he goes, Harris allowing Jared Jewell to go right on past, and then Jason De Vries and Robert Jackman will be coming upon quite shortly here, as I'm sure the eyes of race control are very closely watching that car. But just looking through the rest of the field here, I saw Thomas Pomatico going onto pit lane that last time by, perhaps getting an early pit stop, and you almost have to think here, we're about 32 minutes into this race. The prototypes, Rachel, should be going about an hour. The GT cars, maybe not so much.
We expect the prototype cars to be just shy of the hour, we think, and well, the GT cars with a limited fuel, they are not going to make the hour mark, so we're expecting it to be just shy, in the ballpark of about 50 minutes, 50 minutes, Cam. So I think it's going to be pretty similar between the both classes. Both classes should be pitting in about the same sort of time, as I believe Harris has retired that car, so that is his day done.
Yes, it is, and well, you know what could have been. I mean, Austin Harris did qualify fairly well in the GT category, but you just had that incident at the very beginning of a 2-hour race, never going to end well, and now Jason De Vries and Robert Jackman are the ones that are on our view cameras here, just because it is so very, very close. And actually, ooh, Jared Jewell having a massive wiggle. Ooh, he wiggles it back and forth, and then he hits the barrier, the concrete wall on the outside. Jason De Vries and Robert Jackman both passing our GT leader, and I believe, Rachel, that Mercedes is carrying some wheel damage there. He got loose coming off of corner number 7.
Certainly, Cam. We're going to replay it for you now. As you see there, Jared Jewell just comes off the fast corner there. He puts his wheel on the rumble strips, and that rear wheel catches the strip, car gets wiggly, the balance starts to shift, and he just puts it in the barrier hard. Yeah, he's definitely got aerodynamic damage. I can imagine he certainly has wheel damage on that left front suspension there from that impact. This will be a trip down pit road, I suspect, for Jared Jewell, your class leader as he was. Oh, Jason DeVries has now inherited that class lead, along with Robert Jackman moving up to second in a shock turn of events there, as Jared Jewell, your GT division leader, has an solo incident cam. Not something we expect.
No, not anything that we wanted to see at all. Paul Wildridge bringing his Mercedes onto the pits, and there comes Jared Jewell. He is bringing that number 78 Mercedes down on the pit road, and he is going to be working on it as his Mercedes crew, that IPForce.com pit crew, is going to be working their way onto that car. They're going to follow in and see what they can do about it. Well, I mean, it shouldn't take that long to fix it. I mean, they're probably a Mercedes team, I would imagine. They're always fast, those German teams, as right now, just looking back a little bit through the GT fields, looking to see who's a little close to who. You have Chris Allen and Doug Lyerly. We haven't really talked about these two cars. But Lyerly in that number 38 and Chris Allen in that number 51, Rachel. It's two Mercedes once again. They're a little backer in the field, but you know what? They're having a good race nonetheless.
Oh, they certainly are, Cam. Great race for those two. But yeah, this field's definitely been an interesting one. As we can see there, even the fastest cars here can have incidents on their own. So worth keeping your eyes out. Of course, you don't want to let anything happen to you, but this is just one of those signs that racing is occasionally not a forgiving God.
No, not at all, especially here at Montreal. I mean, even in no matter what car, and to be completely fair, the only cars I have personally really seen is Paul Wildridge and his 67 Audi, or his Mercedes. I'm sure somebody would throw a shoe at me if I said that, but his Mercedes is pulling out onto exit. Now, pit exit here, very interesting to say the very least. It throws you right into the racing line. Now, of course, Wildridge coming out just ahead of Jason DeVries and Robert Jackman, but to say, here at Canada, I'm so used to just seeing open wheel cars, whether it's the Lotus 49 that we have here recreated on the iRacing service, or the Lotus 79 also here on the iRacing service, or perhaps even something a little smaller like Formula Renault, the Star Mazda, perhaps even our brand new Formula One car, the MP430, if I can recall correctly. Not necessarily an open wheel connoisseur, but to say the very least, I normally think of this as an open wheel track. I have to say, these GT cars and these prototype cars are handling this circuit Gilles Villeneuve very well here today, and with the HPP Simulation GT Series group that we have here.
Yeah, they certainly are, Cam. Of course, this track does cater to other series and has catered in the past to other series. You might recognise from the Dodge, the GoDaddy, and other banners of those ilk. This is the layout, and these are the curbs, actually. It was used in the NASCAR layout when the Nationwide Series used to come here for a race every year. Personally, a race I missed, actually. I thought it was one of the best ones, but yeah, even American stock cars come here racing on the Montreal street circuit. The Formula 1 layout does use slightly lower curbs in certain places, especially the final chicane. But it's great to see different cars using this surface. Of course, tricky for multi-class racing, of course. This is a lot like Long Beach, really. In that it's a tight track. Passing is very difficult even in your own class. You're in a prototype class and it's even harder, so you can take pride in both sides.
Well, absolutely, and as George Sandman looks to get around Thomas Pomatico in the number 45 Audi, that 15 prototype will make it easy as they head his way towards corners 12 and 13 just one more time. You can just see under braking how close George Sandman closes up to Doug Lyerly, as Chris Allen has left Lyerly in the dirt. As George Sandman coming across, he'll manage to make it look easy going through the start-finish line once again. As, well, George Sandman, he finishes out lap number 26. That is going to be a total of 38 minutes and 23 seconds of racing we've had here. Rachel, already quite a few fireworks here at Montreal, to say the very least. And actually, just looking through everything right now, Robert Jackman seems to have gotten quite a gap from Jason DeVries. I wonder, though, if perhaps DeVries lost control of that car for a second.
We'll have to find out what's happened here, of course. Jason DeVries sitting there in... oh, Jackman is behind DeVries, so DeVries is still leading your class in GT division, but yeah, the gap has shrunk, so possibly a wobble for that Audi, but Jackman, well, he was in a good second place earlier on, so I'll see why I wouldn't hang on to this place. At the moment, it's a tricky position for him to be in. Let's see if he can make this one run longer on tyres than the Audi.
Well, perhaps we will have to see as DeVries goes on the inside of Wild Ridge. That is lap traffic. As, well, actually, coming right out ahead of Jason DeVries is Drew Reinhardt. Not quite sure why Reinhardt is coming in. He should have plenty of fuel. So that prototype car perhaps picked up a little bit of damage, or the tires had just fallen off on that car, but he wants to come in. So he did. He got some service, and off and away he went. Just looking right now at the prototype field, though,
Cam,
Rachel.
the window is actually open here, sorry. The window for pits is open. With this being under an hour just for these guys, this is a two-stop race, so of course this means these guys are going to try and split this one evenly. The prototypes will be taking tyres, of course they can afford to, but the GT cars, well, they take tyres after the fuel, so expect them to double stint at least once and to take tyres on one of those stops, probably the first stop. As it stands, of course, yeah, the window is open for splitting this one evenly, so 40 minutes, 40 minutes, 40 minutes, roughly in that ballpark. Obviously, that's not quite right, it'd be more like 45, but in this situation, of course, you know, yeah, actually, yes, it would be 40, 40, 40, so two stops. This is in the window for Reinhardt, he's stopping early, hoping to get a jump there on Sandman.
Windrum was also coming in. He was coming in from second as Reinhardt had already come in, and actually Windrum is going to be the loser on that one, I think, as Drew Reinhardt is going to be coming out. Oh, actually here, Rory Windrum coming out perhaps just ahead of Drew Reinhardt. It's going to be the second and third classes in your prototype field. Rory Windrum, he actually manages to jump Drew Reinhardt through the pit stop cycle here. That prototype of the number 70 prototype of Rory Windrum through the pit cycle here. He got his fuel in his tires just a little bit faster than Drew Reinhardt. Drew Reinhardt has been relegated now to third place. And, well, if everyone's coming in, you have to wonder when George Sandman is coming in, because if one lap could be the difference between that couple of seconds that Rory Windrum and Drew Reinhardt you gotta wonder here perhaps just how far the gap is going to be for Sandman and the other cars in the prototype field. So very interesting to say the very least, as we still have 5 prototype cars on the lead lap, as well as 7 GT cars on their lead lap. And actually, looking at Jason DeVries, he has been caught up by Robert Jackman. Robert Jackman has got that Audi in his sights.
He certainly does. Robert Jackman making some good time here. His tyres running a lot better later on in this stint, of course. We do expect to see the GT cars head to pit road fairly soon, so if Jason DeVries, I apologise, could stay ahead, he has a real chance of breaking away early and making a good gap. But it does seem, though, that Jackman is much better late in the stint. If they take tyres in his first run, this could definitely go the way of DeVries if he can make a gap in that second stint. But if they don't take tyres in the final stop, which we expect, then I do believe that it could go to Jackman.
Well, it certainly could, and just looking through, Drew Reinhardt has managed to get by Rory Windrum just like that, so perhaps the heat and the tires that Drew Reinhardt had on him allowed him to skirt by the number 70 car of Windrum, but perhaps we'll see here Windrum could get a good counter. I mean, they are close enough to that. The pair of C7 Daytona prototype cars making their way through the concrete jungle that is Montreal, the quick lefts, quick rights, and just a healthy helping of wall on both sides, but they managed to make their way through. This is turn 7 they're coming off of, as I did see that James Kruhela, of course, the number 24 prototype, he ended up having a spin, but he's already a lap down. So he managed to correct that one. You have to look at George Sandman, though. He has a minute gap on the rest of the prototype field. He is just that much faster, but you have to wonder when that number 15 prototype car is going to come into the pits. And Rachel, just exactly what might be the full median of a pit stop in the prototype cars?
Well, that's something we're going to keep an eye on here, Cam, of course, but it's certainly looking like it's an exciting one at the moment in terms of what Sandman can do here. We know he's always great at saving fuel. That's something we always expect from him. So, also, we've had a retirement. Jared Jull has officially retired from the race, Cam.
Well, I was wondering if perhaps that suspension damage could have been fixed, but alas, it just couldn't. So they will be retiring that Mercedes. Oh, what could have been? He was leading for quite a few laps, Jerry Jewell. But for the most part, though, he'll just have to retire, and that's unfortunate here in the 2 hours of Montreal. Of course, brought to us by Berryman Products since 1918. They've been providing all sorts of different solutions and products for cars and other motor vehicles. So, of course, very gracious to them sponsoring this. But for the most part, though, I have to say it has been quite a race between all of these different cars. And just looking at the timing screens that I have access to, and let's be fair here, I'm an American, so the things I have access to might not be entirely accurate, but the pits that had been made, Drew Reinhardt, who's in second position in the prototypes, his entirety on pit lane, pit entry, pit stop, pit exit was 52.2 seconds. Rory Windham was 49.9. So you have to wonder here, Drew Reinhardt is 58 seconds behind George Sandman. If you have to look at perhaps what could happen in a pit cycle here, if George Sandman is on the pit cycle for about 50 seconds, I mean, that's only going to be a 7, possibly 8-second gap between Sandman and Reinhardt, and I think this is going to be a lot closer than we're giving credit for, thinking with having just about a minute gap, because the last lap from George Sandman was a 132.4. Drew Reinhardt, who's crossing the line, did a 131.9, so just about half a second between the two. That last lap by, and of course Rory Windham isn't letting Drew Reinhardt getting away, but pit cycles should be very interesting, and I'm actually surprised, Rach, to see the prototype cars coming in before the GT cars.
Well, that's what I was saying, Cam. I think the GT cars can stretch it a little bit longer, but the prototypes, we've always known they've had a fairly short fuel tank, really, in terms of what they can do. Not much ability really to save fuel here for them. Of course, the initial part of the lap you can, but you've really got to use that power on the main straight, so you really have to use a lot of what you have. And it's a long time flat on the floorboards, so these guys, well, they're just a little shorter on fuel. That was nearly a 3 wide there we saw with George Sandman and a couple of your GT cars, but he's staying out at the moment. We don't believe he's pitted yet.
No, not just yet. My timing screen hasn't popped up with anything. Christopher Hacker, though, is going to be one of the first GT cars that I've seen coming in here, as Christopher Hacker is bringing in his Mercedes, that blue and yellow number 30, coming into the pits, as he'll be getting his service. He'll be getting the fuel. Wondering if he's going to get tires here. It's going to be relatively interesting to say whether they double stint the tires or not. I imagine it would. They can only change one tire at a time, which takes just as long as I would say as fueling the car. And of course, for safety reasons, you can swap the driver out and do the fuel. Of course, we're not worried about driver swaps. Yep, he's getting tires on that GT3 car, but for safety reasons, you can't be having crew work on the car while it is getting fueled, so they'll be changing out the tires and looking to fix any damage, which that car does look fairly clean. So as Jason DeVries and Robert Jackman come across the start-finish line one more time, you got to be wondering perhaps when they are going to be coming into pits. And as we start another lap here, perhaps, let's see here, if we can go on board with a lap with Robert Jackman and his Mercedes as he hunts down the very orange Audi, the number 1 of Jason DeVries here at Montreal. So that Mercedes versus Audi here at Montreal. And just like that, you can actually see it's a fairly straightforward pit entry as, well, is that both of our leaders? Yes, it is. Robert Jackman bringing his Mercedes in, followed by George Sandman and his prototype. So GTs and prototypes pitting together here. The Mercedes of Jackman, he's going to be sliding his way all the way up as Doug Lyerly and Chris Allen are also on pit lane. Robert Jackman, he's holding his AMG as that'll be Doug Lyerly and Chris Allen falling out of pit lane in a quick succession. George Sandman, they come up on the air jacks it goes. They'll be looking at getting the rattle guns on those tires. They'll swap them out, get that thing completely full of fuel and back on track. Now let's watch. Where is Drew Reinhardt in comparison? He's just rounding the pit hairpin, and he is working his way right now up through the straight. And we'll have to see here just where Drew Reinhardt comes out, Rachel.
We certainly will, but we expect this to be a fairly simple sequence, of course. George Sandman has, I believe, just come out pit road this time by Drew Reinhardt, even. Sorry, he's on the start-finish line there. So, quite a distance back. It's not really been a gap for him to gain on. 45 seconds back to George Sandman. That's incredible.
Well, it absolutely is. You have to wonder just what George Sandman's pit time was, and his entire lane was 48.3 seconds, so he had a full pit service, but just he was not able to really get any time, Drew Reinhardt or Rory Windrum, as, well, 47 and 49 seconds back. I mean, that just goes to show you, Rachel, just how strong George Sandman is in his prototype, and he doesn't really seem to have a lot of traffic to deal with. Jason DeVries in the GT3 division is coming into the pits as Douglas Beard, a prototype, coming out right behind him. Brian Bennett there is also coming in the pits. So pits right now, fairly busy place. We'll see if they can perhaps get some of that Audi damage repaired.
They certainly are, Cam, and this is what we expected, really, of course. This is when we expected to see a lot of traffic here on pit road. That car of DeVries looking very, very battered for being in the lead, so impressive from him and his crew to be in that situation. Not seeing air jacks at the moment, so once fueling is complete, we'll be able to tell you whether that's going to be a thing or not.
We'll have
Such a long wait on... Oh, he is, yes, he's up on the air jack, so
yep.
4 tyre change for Jason DeVries, as I guessed, really. I didn't guess, I made an estimated estimate that we would be seeing 4 tyre stop on this first stint. I expect we'll be seeing fuel only on that second pit stop, so this is really going to be interesting to see if he can build that gap he needs over Robert Jackman. Because if he can't, Jackman does seem better on all tyres.
Get the throttle spooling up on that German Audi as he will spool it away. It doesn't kick up any sand or any smoke, though, which is very disappointing. But where is anyone else around him? Robert Jackman there pulling alongside almost. No, Robert Jackman there is going to be relegated back down to second once again, with possibly an even greater gap than when Jason DeVries came in compared to when Jackman came in. So very interesting here to see exactly when the pit differences are going to come in here. We did see the prototype come in 1 lap early and managed to make the jump, but not
Cam, sorry, P2, P3 in your prototype field here. Drew Reinhardt and Rory Windham, they are right on top of each other. We are seeing a battle here in your podium in the Daytona prototype class. No, Rory Windham nearly runs square into the back of Drew Reinhardt there, coming into turn 10, the hairpin. In that beautiful bowl of grandstands, of course, beautiful views for the spectators, but we're getting a bird's eye view right now. We're a beautiful view here of Windham catching Reinhardt. We could see a pass into the chicane. Will he be brave? He looks to the inside. He's going to be alongside. No, he backs out in the braking zone, taking a safer option, Cam.
Yes, and that red and black number 70 Daytona prototype of Rory Windrum getting under attacked by Drew Reinhardt. To say the very least, though, Windrum did manage to make the pass last lap, and Reinhardt with a very line charge back, but he just wasn't able to get the pass done. He kind of overdrove it into that hairpin, which is just so easy. I think we saw earlier with the Audi passing on the outside going into that hairpin that, you know, maybe a prototype could do it, but I just don't think with how these prototypes are built that it's possible to go on the outside of that hairpin. But you never know here what we could see as well, just that overrunning that overrunning that corner there. That has cost him so much, as Drew Reinhardt is quite a few seconds back. He seems to be a little bit better under braking. The car looks a little bit more secure, and they're coming up to Phil Mishaga, Rachel. And, well, some GT traffic. They'll go around. One will go around one side. Will the other one follow through? I believe so, but this is going to be really hard for Drew Reinhardt here, as he is almost going to try to go on the outside, and this is going to cost him even more time.
And he is not a great position to be in, Cam, but Drew Reinhardt there doing what he can to try and make back up time toward P2 at the moment, but GT traffic is caught in the wrong place, wrong time, has really cost him a bit of track position.
Well, it absolutely has, as Reinhardt, well, you know, he managed to make the pass after Windrum came out of the pits. He had a little bit of a faster pit stop, but just like that, he has lost the position, and now, as they cross the line, it is going to be just about 2 seconds between the two. Well, maybe about a second and 1/8. But overall, though, to say the very least, this prototype race has been very exciting. And now that we've gotten pit stops underway, I believe, or out of the way, I guess I should say, we're going to go look to see if we can go cut to commercial real quick and bring us, you guys, some of our sponsors and the content that we have here on the iRacing service. So we're going to cut to commercial real quick here in the HPP Simulation GT Series, of course, on iRacingLive and apparently on Facebook. So we'll be back right after a few of these messages.
For iRacing to get Le Mans is huge. I mean, this is a unique event, a unique track where, you know, half of the track is public road, so you can never test on it, you never get experience on it, and it's 8 miles in length, 4-minute lap time in a GT car. So, you know, even if you're here for an hour of testing, that's only 15 laps, and you're only going to see the corner 15 times that day. The first section going through the Dunlop area is pretty unique. You know, it's got elevation change and off camber. Then you go down Mulsanne into the chicanes, and you know, the straights are unbelievably long. It's a tricky track, and you know, every year I've come here, this being my 4th year, you learn something new every time.
We've wanted to add Le Mans to iRacing for a long time, and we've really been working hard towards it for the last 5 years. But really, things only came together in the last week leading up to this race, so it was a real scramble to put everything together. The majority of Le Mans is public roads, so when they're preparing for the 24-hour race, it's really the only time that we can visit to laser scan and photograph the track so that we can recreate it in iRacing. We work closely with the ACO to get essentially exclusive access to the facility, and everything that we needed to get the laser scanning and photographic reference that we need to create the track. We were very fortunate to be at Le Mans at the most important time of the year and gain that experience of being there. And we're going to really do the best we can to put that into our work and making sure that the Le Mans in iRacing is the best Le Mans, the most exciting and accurate recreation of the track possible.
These are not the only tools that you need at arm's reach. With over 98 years of proven American-made muscle in a can, Berryman has a family of products that fits almost every mechanic and weekend warrior's toolbox. From brakes to fuel boost and cleaning additives, Berryman is engineered to be the right tool for the job you need. So visit BerrymanProducts.com to get the rundown on the right chem tool or cleaner for you, and look for us at any of your favorite hardware or parts store. Berryman Products, demand the good stuff.
Welcome back here for the 2 hours of Montreal, brought to us by Berryman Products. Of course, your best products for your automotive and other mechanical needs. We are here at Montreal for a 2-hour race. We're already an hour in. Where have you been if you're just joining? But we're here, of course, on iRacingLive with RaceSpotTV and iRacing here on the YouTube and the Facebook, I'm guessing, I'm hearing. But either way, of course, it's myself, Cameron Walsh, Rachel Whiteford, and Hugo Lewis on the cameras as we are bringing you, as we've said, the aforementioned Berryman Products 2 hours of Montreal. It's been a pretty interesting race, to say the very least. You didn't have while the prototype field doesn't have the numbers it's making up in quality, as we have still a great battle in the second and third with Rory Windrum and Drew Reinhardt in the prototype field. And in the GT cars, we've had quite a few dramas, as at the start we had a car spin going in 3 wide into turn 1, collected a couple of others, and now we have Jason DeVries back up front with Robert Jacquin and Brian Bennett. The cars having gotten away fairly well here, as the rest of the field, we've already gone through our pit cycle, and now we are here 1 hour to go. Rachel will bring you back in here for the opening here after our commercial break, of course. But George Sandman, well, that car's been looking a little twitchy, to say the very least. But Drew Reinhardt, over the commercial break, has managed to get that position back over Rory Windrum.
He certainly did, and we just had an incident, of course, with Chris Allen in your GT field, the Mercedes there. Lost it going through the first sector, and he rolled that car. I'm going to try and get a replay for you. That's number 51 car there. That car, I believe, yeah, he's had to retire that car, but big moment there. Replay showing you on the screen there. Just lost the back end in the fast right-hander, and round it goes, hits the wall, and over he goes. Big moment for him.
Well, absolutely, and of course you hate to see something like that happen, but of course, it's kind of a cruel mistress, this Montreal track, as, well, I will say, though, that Mercedes did flip pretty darn good, to say the very least. He actually did something that we do so very often in open-wheel Formula cars. You just try and get as close to that interior barrier as you can, and he just wasn't able to make it happen. But overall, though, just to say that is one less in the GT division, unfortunately, but to say that we're still not having a race on our hands would be folly, because Jason DeVries and Robert Jackman, well, Robert Jackman that last time by 0.4 of a second quicker. This time by, we'll have to see, as Jason DeVries crosses the start-finish line. It's a 1:36.5 at the line for him. Jackman, we'll see, a 1:36.7. So these guys are trading lap times here, which is exciting to see, but Douglas Beard in his prototype car is going to be looking to get by.
Yeah, he certainly is. Douglas Beard there, having a good run at the moment, but still a bit of a gap back, though, to Windrum, so pretty tough for those guys. I don't think there's much chance of passing, really, in the prototype field now in the pit cycle, because they're so spread out, but the GT field is far from that. Keeping our eyes, of course, on Jason DeVries, who is your class leader at the moment in the GT division. He's got some damage, but he is still out ahead of Robert Jackman, who is, I would say, about 6 seconds, 7 seconds back from him now. Both of them heading through the first 1, 2, 3 corner complex. So, not a big gap, but we do know Jackman closes up at the end of his stint. Coupled with that, Cam, that we expect these guys will not be taking tyres on that final pit stop. So, that will be an interesting one to see what will happen. Will he catch up? Will he have enough to make it past?
Will indeed. But we still have great battling going on in the prototype division here as we just are looking at Drew Reinhardt in his number 69 and Rory Windrum in his number 70 prototypes. And overall, though, I mean, these two prototype cars have passed each other probably 5 times at this point, and we've seen them do it at different stages here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve track. And Rory Windrum, well, he's catching up once again, Rachel, and, well, this Montreal circuit offers quite a few passing opportunities, to say the very least.
Well, passing is, I'd say, rather at a premium here, actually, Cam. It's a tough place to race. Slow speed corners really make passing somewhat difficult. The track's quite narrow and not a lot of runoffs, so you have to be careful with what you do, but you have got opportunities. Turn 10, the hairpin's a good one, especially getting a good exit there, running down the main back straight here, and of course on the start-finish straight. You can also make some passes in some of these chicane areas if you're close enough to the car, but always carry that risk. These curbs are quite big, so cars can bobble. It's a tough one. You've got to be very patient.
Well, you certainly could. Now, Montreal, for whatever reason, myself in Montreal, we always just seem to click together. Back in my Lotus 79 days, of course, the Lotus 79, the 1978 championship winning Formula One car that we have here on the iRacing service. Now, I myself, personally, myself and this car and this track all managed to hook up. Actually, it was going to be the only time I would have come away with a victory, but unfortunately, cruel fates had to abide, and my steering wheel had to become dislodged. But, you know, these things happen, but, well, not anymore. I've bolted it down securely and duct taped it for good measure and other measures because I don't ever want that to happen again. But you know what? Hey, either way, though, Montreal has been a track that I have always excelled at, and I think you can have drivers that do excel at this type of environment because this track is just it has enough of a difference to where you can really have some people be very, very good at tracks only like this, whereas some other tracks might be much different that other people excel at.
And it can be, Cam, of course. These sort of tracks, the slow speed, the tight track, it's certainly quite a disciplined racing here on street courses, and we are going to refer to this as a street course, even though it's a semi-permanent facility. These roads, of course, open to the public on the off-season, and when it's not a racing venue. It's very tricky, of course. You've got to have a different mentality, different mindset. You've got to be very brave, getting as close to those walls as you can manage. But you've got to remember, of course, something like this, it's a kind of a semi-permanent facility. You have got grass run off on the edges. Run a bit too wide, get a wheel on the grass, you can have a very, very quick end to a long day. So it's all about making sure you actually find the right balance, and some drivers, yeah, they have a great time running on the big open permanent circuits. Some people, they are really good at these kind of tracks.
Yes, and I found myself being one of them back in my driving days. Not necessarily much of a driver these days, but you know what, that's all right when I get to commentate on great races like this. But either way, though, just to say the very least, I mean, you do clip that grass, your day is going to come to an end very quickly. But this Montreal circuit, it's of course been home to all sorts of different motorsports, mostly Formula One, but even named after a Formula One driver. But that would be, of course, Gilles Villeneuve. Shockingly enough, I know, Rachel, but for the most part, though, the circuit, it's been around for quite a long time, actually. I mean, you can go back to probably the 70s when this track was still around, and it's been just such a great circuit, to say the very least. But other circuits that are, of course, semi-permanent, quote-unquote, would be some tracks that we saw on our commercial break. Of course, the Nürburgring Nordschleife and Le Mans. Of course, the Nürburgring at this point is not really a semi-permanent track. It's a permanent track, but it's just a really long one. Whereas Le Mans, of course, will be coming to iRacing fairly soon. But before that, Rachel, we're going to be getting Imola.
Yeah, we certainly are, Cam. Of course, Imola is a track that every motorsports fan knows about, and it has a long and, well, storied history. Some good, some bad, some tragic. But it is one of the biggest and best race circuits in the world. One I'm super excited to hear that we're getting here on iRacing. It's going to be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And when we get that, of course, I'm not going to say for certain what might happen, but if I was a betting man, and which I'm not, even though I've been to Las Vegas, I would probably presume, Rachel, that we might at RaceSpotTV be bringing you at least some of this coverage. But for the most part, though, whenever Le Mans comes or any other track that we have, whether it be Imola or any of the other tracks in development, which of course could be anywhere from Long Beach to some small circular places that are covered in dust or dirt or whatever you might call them. It is always going to be interesting to watch, to say the very least. And well, with Imola, I mean, just it's a scary fast track.
Oh, it certainly is. Of course, they've made changes to make it safer over the years. In fact, some of the only changes that have happened here at Montreal have been to improve safety, added chicanes and improved chicanes. Really make this track a bit slower in certain areas. Of course, the chicane before the Wall of Champions was added. But largely, this place hasn't changed much since the 1980s, which is one of those historic street circuits we really go to, of course. And Imola, it's a permanent facility, but it's an amazing facility. It's a really fast track, even with the chicanes it has now. And it carries so much history. Cannot wait.
Well, I can't either because, and this is going to be rather shocking, I know, I've never driven a lap of Imola. So I will be excited to learn that track, just like I am trying to learn the Nordschleife. Still have not successfully done a lap that I'm happy with, but you know what, these things come with time. It's not like I can really spend my time doing this. I'm busy doing other things like bringing very good series to picture with sound, as well, Drew Reinhardt and Rory Windrum are still fighting, and ooh, they're actually coming onto some traffic. Benjamin Perez is in the way, that BMW, as they're looking to go down the long straight.
Yeah, they certainly are. It's getting quite exciting now. That is going to be interesting when these guys try and pass. Of course, this could be the pick that Rory Windrum is looking for to get past Drew Reinhardt. Of course, he was leading before, but he's had to drop back to third place here in that fight he's had with Drew Reinhardt from the early laps. But yeah, the Mercedes they're catching. The speed advantage will be on. Oh, bit of a wiggle there from Rory Windham. The main advantage they'll have here is on this back straight. If they can get past there, great. If not, problems. As we'll see here, Reinhardt not going to have a chance. No, he doesn't get the move. Of course, these guys do not have to move out of the way in the GT field. The onus is on the prototypes, Cam. Make the pass safely. Doing that just now.
Well, absolutely. Drew Reinhardt there, though, he managed to lose the rear end just for a second going in through corner number 1, as Thomas Pomatico will allow Windrum and Reinhardt to go past. And actually a very tricky section, a frightening section. That's from 4 to 5, where there's a little bit of a wall there. So very interesting to see how they were able to pull that off without having much issue there. But either way, though, the next GT car is Brian Bennett, and that won't be for some time. As Drew Reinhardt, he loses the rear end again. These tires possibly overheating, as Windrum also loses the rear end. These prototype cars are burning up their tires, and they're only an hour and 11 minutes into this race. I think we're going to be seeing a two-stopper, Rachel, from these prototype cars.
We certainly are, of course, and I believe that is the Audi that they're trying to get past at the moment of... trying to work out who that is. That was actually Thomas Matko. They are past him now, but these prototype cars, they're going at it hard here. Windrum, I think he smells blood. He's trying to find a way past, looking for an opportunity, which means they're both pushing hard now, Cam. When they're pushing this hard, someone's going to put a foot wrong soon. Oh, well, big sideways there.
Yes, I was about to say, these prototype cars are getting mighty slippery. And actually, for all it's worth, over the last couple of laps, I have to say, George Sandman has been losing time. It's now down to about 32 seconds. I mean, we were up to 40-something seconds after the pit stop cycle. And George Sandman, though, I think he has time to burn here. I mean, a 30-second gap is nothing to shake a stick at. but so perhaps he's taking it a little easy. But to say the very least, though, Drew Reinhardt and Windrum, I mean, these guys are racing hard together, but they're still closing that gap. Now, that's not to say the very least, though. George Saman couldn't just turn up that wick. As, well, watching these two prototype cars, you almost have to wonder where else on track fighting might be, but it just seems that this seems to be the hot action right now.
Oh, it certainly is. There's definitely action in your GT field as well, but these... Oh, that was Rory Windrum there, kissing the wall. Try and get you a replay of what just happened there. Coming to the third chicane there. He comes across the apex curving. It's a bit wide and grazes that back quarter panel of his Corvette C7R Daytona prototype on the concrete walls. This is what we're saying, Cam. This is how hard and how close these guys run to those walls to get as much speed as they can. That was almost a kiss of death for Rory Windrum's race.
Well, it was fairly close to being a good knock. I have a feeling if he got a good knock in on it, he probably would have been careened into that wall. Front nose would have gone into it. But either way, though, they finish out lap number 49 here as Windrum, well, he's just looking to probably survive these next couple of corners rather than gain time. But Reinhardt there, he seems to be, I don't want to say being affected by the pressure, but to say the very least, Drew Reinhardt, he has been making some mistakes that you don't normally see. The car's been getting a little slippery on him. There it is, slippery again. But he manages to get that car gathered back up. A Herculean effort to get that car hurried up. Windrum, almost looking to the inside, but no, he doesn't do it.
He doesn't. A big wiggle there by Reinhardt as well as they're coming through here. It's tough now. These guys are definitely on the edge here. Definitely be expecting tyres from these cars on the next pit stop, Cam. Pushing incredibly hard here. We're heading up to that 1 hour 20 minute mark here, so we're, I'd say about 20 minutes maybe from our next pit stop, so getting close here. It could be a bit less. We might be looking at that pit stop anytime soon.
Well, any time indeed, as Reinhardt and Windrum are coming around the hairpin one more time. You almost have to wonder if you're Reinhardt, if you come into the pits, if you're Windrum, if you are going to follow. But if you're Reinhardt and you're staying out and you're Windrum and you need to come in, it could be fairly interesting to say the very least. As Windrum, they both blow the chicane. Oh heavens, that was done in sympathy for both cars as Windrum gives the position back to Reinhardt. Reinhardt, he rear-ended into the wall. We're definitely going to have to get a replay of that. Holy macaroni.
Certainly are big moments there. Replay will come up on your screen very shortly, but huge mistake there, as it was actually the car of Reinhardt who loses the first apex, overruns the second, and hits the wall with the back of his car. No major damage, but I think Windrum just blew the chicane on purpose to avoid the sideways car, so this is hotting up.
Yes, indeed, and also as Drew Reinhardt, oh boy, he just loses it just a little bit. Now, I do have a question. This might not be the time or the place for it. I do notice that the European types constantly are saying are hotting up. Is that a normal thing for you, hotting up, or is it heating up? Because for us, it's heating up, and I've always heard it being said as hotting up, and I always thought it was like a quick reference to something, but no, I'm starting to believe that that's just what you all call it.
I guess that's a paraphrasing, really, Cam. Heating up is what you'd say is grammatically correct, so as we invented the English language, I suppose we'd say the correct grammatical fashion.
Nonsense.
But
You say
y'all
aluminium,
Americans,
that's
I'm
not
sure, would find a way of
grammatically
saying hotting up, I'm sure, but I'm kidding, of course. I guess it varies. People say different things. In this case, heating up is perfectly acceptable. These guys are definitely trying to turn up the fire on this.
Oh, absolutely, and it's sort of it's funny that they both have an incident through that final chicane all on their own there, and it just looked like the incidents were on their own. And actually, yep, Rory Windrum there, he manages to lose the rear end, even though he was the one that didn't have any rear end damage. He's the one that loses the rear end going through corner number one. Oh boy, and that is they were getting around Paul Wildridge. Wildridge, I have to say, gave him an exceedingly amount of room, but Windrum, he just lost the rear there.
He did not what he wanted to have happening at this stage of the race, but he's got to manage that if he wants to keep going at this stage. It's just really tricky for those guys. They are really getting sideways.
Yes, absolutely. And these prototype cars, they're quickly starting to come in onto at least a couple of GT cars, as the line of GT traffic as it stands right now would be Brian Bennett in his number 58 Audi, who is in third. Then it would go to Phil Nishaga, who is well back down in 14th overall and a lap off of the GT leaders, and then Robert Jackman and then Jason DeVries. So overall, though, it's just one of those things where you have to wonder exactly how these guys are going to tackle this traffic. But now, just look at the gap going but down the straight between Reinhardt and Windrum there. That gap is just about 3 seconds at the chicane. But to say the very least, Rory Windrum isn't going to be regretting that one anytime soon is nothing short of silly, because that has been a huge mistake that is going to be very, very affecting of his race there. Hopefully that doesn't deflate anything, and Windrum can stay on the attack.
We'll have to see what they can do, of course, Cam. We did see there, though, that the fastest lap was about 10 laps ago for Drew Reinhardt. And have a look what happened with Rory Windrum. Yeah, his fastest lap was about the same time. These two have been pushing hard. So a couple of slower laps here for these two will probably do their tyres a lot of good. They've been chewing the rubber off those Continental tyres in this race so far tonight.
Well, absolutely, and just to say the very, it looks like Paul Wildridge had an incident in his number 67 Mercedes. He's on the pits there, and that engine is in full glory as the hood has been removed from that, but the driver is no longer in that car, so Paul Wildridge, another casualty here of the Montreal circuit. But just as we are looking through here, we are closing out here on 1 hour and 20 minutes, raced about 40 minutes to go, somewhere about there, 39 minutes and 25 seconds or something like that. But either way, though, just looking at how this race has developed, though, Rachel, I think this has been a lot closer than we might have expected, though, to say the very least. George Sandman has been the man on the move, as he has gotten, he is still running 1:31.4s, and he has got about a 40-second gap ahead of everyone else.
He certainly does. It's a huge gap there for Sandman. We've not talked about him much, but he's doing everything he absolutely needs to in this race, Cam. It's incredible drive. You see it every week from him. He really teaches the masterclass in driving these Corvette C7R Daytona prototypes.
Well, absolutely, and that doesn't necessarily matter which track we've been on either. Either at Sebring or Daytona or here at Montreal, they have been putting on a good show. And the car of George Sandman, he has been doing an exceedingly well job of piloting that C7R. And then you've got to look to the GT categories here. And you've got Jason DeVries. Well, he qualified half a second faster than the rest of the field in the GT division, but you know what, he seems to have a good footprint right now over Robert Jackman, quite a ways between Jason DeVries and Jackman.
I can't believe you're tired, Cam. It's maybe 10 o'clock in the evening for you. It's 3:30 in the morning for me, so it's quite late on this side of the pond, but you know what, it's worth staying up to watch the HPP Simulations 2 hours of Montreal. It's an awesome series. Love commentating on these guys. They have some brilliant racing in the GT and prototype classes. Not a grid that we expect normally today, of course. Bigger fields are the norm, but it's incredibly tough competition, and we love watching it.
Yes, as Drew Reinhardt has come down onto the pit lane, and Rory Windrum is coming right behind, and no, I'm not tired. It's just my brain is, it lacks oxygen. I can't breathe when I'm talking. As, well, Paul Wildridge's Mercedes is now caught on fire. Somebody might want to go fix that, as there's smoke billowing from that Mercedes. I'm sure the manufacturer is none too pleased about that, but Reinhardt and Windrum, now it's the race of the pit crews here. As looking at the pit speeds here, well, they've already spent about 40 seconds here on pit lane. Perhaps Windrum was able to catch up under braking there. They put on a new front clip for Drew Reinhardt's prototype, and Rory Windrum also do, and they are just so very close, but nope, it is going to be Drew Reinhardt in just like that. And actually, Rory Windrum, he has had some sort of an issue coming out of pit lane, and now there's quite a gap between the two, even though they were very close. They were left the pits at the same time.
It's certainly did. Going to keep an eye on what's happened here, actually, Cam, because they both leave the pits at the same time, and I think he left his pit limiter on a bit longer than Reinhardt, so that's what led to the gap, I believe. Reinhardt disengaged very rapidly and left as quickly as he could. Windrum being a little gentle here, of course, trying to protect those tyres early on in this stint. It will close up again, I'm sure. We're expecting this to be another resumed great fight.
You know, I almost wonder here, just looking... Oh, he was still on the pit limiter. I think he was thinking the pit limiter was much further in the pit exit, so he was asleep at the wheel, really.
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy to get mistaken sometimes. I mean, of course, you come out, you see cones, you're not sure which cones you're going for, but yeah, I think he was assuming it was a later set of traffic cones there, marked pit exit lines, so just really missed his mark, but he'll be pushing to catch up now.
Well, he certainly will, and he'll have new tires and full of fuel to go to the very end to do such. But either way here, an hour and 23, so he's only going to have 40 minutes on that tire, so it should be good running for there. But George Sandman, though, through the pit cycle, though, he's managed to pick up quite a bit of a gap, as he will start to look to come to the finish of his 55th lap. As he comes across the line here, and as he completes lap 55, he's did a 1:33.9. So we'll have to see here what the other prototypes will be doing. As we have a GT car that has spun and has crashed right in front of our front-running prototype cars. Is Thomas Pomatico in the 45 Audi.
Yeah, he has. That's a bit of a moment there for Thomas. He's backwards on the racetrack, trying to find a way to turn around. Hasn't got a chance yet. But that car pulled off the side of the road. He will probably be getting a tow back to pit road. We think no, he's going to try and turn around, waiting for a gap in the traffic. This is it, boys and girls. This is how you rejoin the racetrack safely.
Yes.
On a street circuit. No, he's going backwards now. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Wrong way, Thomas.
Looking at the live pictures,
that's not the direction you should be taking. But yeah, he's off and running again. I think I was on a bit of a delay there, but I wanted to drive backwards towards the chicane. I'm thinking, did he get completely turned around in his head as well as the car?
No, I'm sure the spotter would be very informative in letting him know that's not the direction to go. Those Pirellis getting lit up as the Audi gets back on track and starts his way of recovery. You know, he is carrying front-end damage on that Westchester's Best Services car. But, yes, for the most part, though, I mean, he's had a fairly quiet race. But, you know what, that's never a good thing when you have an issue like that as Pomatico goes into the hairpin.
Yeah, he does. Pomatico there really hurt his race with that one, but he kept it out the wall, which is the important part, Cam, so a car can still run, and we'll see what he can get towards the end.
Oh, certainly. So right now we are looking at Robert Jackman and Brian Bennett. I had said earlier on that I was worried that this might happen. Oh, so very close. That Audi able to take the radius of the hairpin so much closer than the Mercedes as they're working their way down here towards the final two turns, 12 and 13, as the Audi is able to catch up here. He just seems to have a massive speed gap, and actually the Audi will back out. It's because he's taking the chicane, and Robert Jackman going into the pits. So Robert Jackman on the pit limiter as Brian Bennett, well, he was going for a pass and then went, I see. So he'll have backed out Robert Jackman now. We'll see, Rachel, perhaps. Jackman, well, he's going to have new tires and new fuel, most assuredly. And Bennett, well, we'll have to see what he can do in return.
We will indeed. That's the first of our pits ready from the GT field. We'll have to see what the others will do in this stage, but expecting no tyres for a lot of the GT front runners here, because they need to make sure they make up that time. Brian Bennett there in that, it's an Audi now taking second place, of course. Jackman was pitting from second place. He's out and away now. That was fuel only for him, so not tyres. We'll have to see what De Vries will do in answer.
Well, we will have to see. It's just one of those things to see how the GT traffic and the cars are working, as Jackman has exited the pits right with Benjamin Perez. Perez, he's showing him a little bit of wheel, but ultimately, though, Jackman, once he gets up to temp, should be able to take the cake and pull away. But for the most part, though, As I almost start to look here, it almost looks like George Sandman might be coming in to start to lap Rory Windrum in the next couple of seconds here. Well, about 10-15 seconds of a gap. So it might take a couple of laps, but I have a feeling Sandman's going to get through as Sandman tries to get through Perez and Jackman. Not necessarily sure if that's going to happen easily, but, because Perez is attacking, I have to say, Robert Jackman, even though Jackman has just left the pits.
He is, yes. Looking forward to see what Benjamin Perez can do there, but not really ready to in poor position there as Sandman will try to get through these GT cars. Have to wait till the exit of turn 10 and hairpin there, but he will get that launch, more power in the C7R Corvette Daytona prototype, showing how fast they really are. He makes light work of the GT drivers, but yeah, we'll have to see what will be happening with Robert Jackman now, as we know that, but well, he is in pit road. Jason DeVries, no, not on pit road yet. He's still running a bit longer, so that Audi, a little bit more fuel efficient.
Just a little bit, but we'll have to see here as George Sandman is in the pits for the final time. He is pulling that Corvette C7R down the Montreal pit lane. It's a very large and accommodating pit lane, to say the very least. I don't see why we don't run sports cars here more often. But either way, there's Sandman. He comes in. He's coasting that car in, just coming up to a nice little cruise of a stop. He'll come up on the air jacks. They'll get the rattle guns on that C7R already at 10 seconds here at the pit stop for that number 15. And he doesn't have to worry about any of the other cars, as Douglas Beard, who is technically in second right now, though he still has a pit stop to go, is a minute and 19 seconds behind. So Sandman, he's coming out. He's clear. He's got no traffic around him. And just like that, Rachel, that Orion race team prototype is ready to go.
Yeah, he certainly is. Great race for him, and quite an easy result, in fact, in that case. He's out and away with no threat from anybody around him, so ideal race there for George Sandman and the Orion Racing Team car. That HPP Simulations car, actually, in fact, so only appropriate, really. The most winningest driver in the prototype field is driving under HPP colours, almost as though he's using their products, really making him faster.
Yes, only making him faster indeed. But either way, though, that prototype car is making his way through the turn 7 right now and heading his way towards the hairpin. As just looking through here, Jackman and Perez, I almost wonder when the front-running GT cars are going to come on in, as DeVries still has to make his pit stop to make it to the end, as DeVries is, of course, our leader in the GT category. But either way, though, the Audi, well, he's really been showing that it kind of is the car to beat here. His fastest lap here in the race is a 136 flat, and Brian Bennett, his fastest lap was a 136.2. Now that's another Audi. And then going to the Mercedes, their fastest lap was a 136.1. So while their laps are, I guess, fairly similar, to say that the Audi might have a bit on consistency, to say the least, is certainly true, because that Audi seems to be pulling away with some relative ease. As he takes the chicane one more time, he's going to stay out for his lap 56.
Yeah, he certainly is, Cam, and we'll have to see what he can do with this one, as we really need to keep an eye on this gap as it forms and what will happen after the pit cycle, of course. DeVries, well, he's still looking fairly quick. 37s he's running now. Only about 1.2 seconds off his fastest lap of the race on lap 6, so he's not dropped off a huge amount. It's definitely noticeable amount, but it's within a ballpark he's been hitting for the last 20 laps, so he's clearly managing his tires better than he was in the first stint.
Yes, and, well, I mean, that's a good thing to see. I mean, he had damage on that car, so it's good to see him having a good recovery from that. I mean, he had lost the car. I mean, it's just one of those things where, I mean, you could have just been so super deflated from that and just said, oh, well, screw it. But Jason DeVries and actually Brian Bennett over the last couple laps has been making some headway here. And Bennett, he's not that far off, to say the very least. You know, we might have a battle on our hands when everyone comes out of the pits. We'll see where everyone stands. But for the most part, though, We'll just have to see when people do come into the pits. I'm not necessarily sure why they're waiting this long. I almost wonder if they're giving it to Jackman, who is now circulating on brand new tires. Or no, actually, he's not on tires. He double stints it.
Yes, indeed. He did double stint those tyres as we expected they probably would here. This 80% fuel cap, of course, meaning they really can't save fuel and run to the end, but you don't want to waste too much time getting tyres, of course, when you can realistically run these tyres on 2 stints, Cam. So, with the not being tyres taken, fuel is your only limiting factor in this second stint, so depending on how late you pushed it in the first one, you can really afford to run a bit later and earn yourself a bit more track position. There's nothing to really gain for the other cars. In fact, running longer on lighter fuel can be more beneficial than running earlier on heavy.
Yeah, that car being just a little bit lighter now, to say the very least. It's not normal to say for a GT car to be that much faster without fuel, as you would call it a qualifying setup. These cars typically run fairly similar times, whether it's full of fuel or not full of fuel. That's just how prototype cars go. But either way, it's just one thing or after another, and we're going to see what these GT cars can do, because it is going to be fairly interesting to see where Bennett comes out compared to DeVries, and where Jackman fits into all this. So we're lining ourselves up, Rachel, to have a very interesting finish here to the Berryman Products 2 Hours of Montreal. And, well, you also have to look at Drew Reinhardt and Rory Windrum. They're very close. And Douglas Beard, who, well, he doesn't, he's got a pit stop to make up. He is still actually right up there as well.
Yeah, he certainly is. That'll be interesting to keep an eye on, of course, as we round up this race here today, the Berryman Tools 2 Hours of Montreal. No more pit stops for Jason DeVries. He will have to come down pit road at some point, we think, unless he switched that car across to hybrid mode or is pedaling. But he has a good lead at the moment. In fact, he's coming up to lap some of the GT traffic himself. So it's about managing what he has at the moment, and running long on low fuel is great for him. So he can stay out till he has 1 drop of fuel remaining. Did he push it too far? Entirely possible. But he's always had a good run so far in the series. So expecting him to get this one right. Making that last stint as short as possible really is beneficial. It means you have a shorter pit stop. You're taking on less fuel, so always beneficial.
Well, always indeed. And just to say, though, I mean, less time you're actually stopped putting fuel into that car, very beneficial as well. So we'll see. But when DeVries comes on in now, we've got an hour and 35 minutes ticked away. We've got 23 minutes left here in the 2 hours of Montreal, brought to us by Berryman Products for the HPP Simulation GT Series. Though, to say the very least, Jason DeVries, he has been out, I think, longer in this stint than his first stint, and it's interesting to see why he is, why you wouldn't have come in later on the first stint and come in on the second stint and get tires and fuel. I think we've normally seen them come in and on the second stop, because we normally see these GT cars do 2 stops. They'll get tires on the second stop and not on the first stop, yet they've kind of reversed that this time. We'll see if it works out for them, but I would just think that they would have taken the tires the second stop.
Of course, if you take them on that first stop, Cam, you've spent that first run on full fuel with fresh tyres, you've burned them up quite a lot. You need to do it second time, obviously, but it's more important really to make that gap early on. Spread the field out, get away from your competitors in the first 2 stints. But when you get to that final stint, really the gap's so much bigger, and you don't really need the fresh tyres. So, in fact, you only widen the gap with a good pit stop. So, these guys, they're gambling on breaking up the traffic early on, that not being a major factor. That has worked so far in the race today, and any longer they would be thinking about it, but you can afford to take 1, so it is a balancing act of which stop you choose. Do you choose to push hard in the first 2, make up ground, and take tyres in the second? But I think, honestly, the starting from back to front is much easier.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and we'll have to see here as well. The number 3 car has come into pit. Benjamin Perez, he was running, he's running a lap down from the front-running GT cars, but he is running a fairly good race. as the front-running BMW. James Fitzpatrick and Phil Mishaga are the other two BMWs. So Perez doing the best out of those BMWs as Reinhardt and Windrum, well, they're at it again, and we'll have to see where abouts they fall. They've got traffic up ahead. Okay, so the lead will go to Brian Bennett, who is getting hounded by Drew Reinhardt and Rory Windrum, as they all screen by the Jason DeVries car that is coming down pit lane, the number 1 car. He is going to be getting their stop, and we will see exactly whether he takes tires or not.
Now, we're not expecting to see that car pop up on the air, Jack's cam, of course, but keep an eye out to see if he is or not. He has a good gap. I don't think it's good enough to take tyres here, so expect, yep, fuel only. He's away, and he will be out of pit road now. This is him passing the cones now. There, that was the pit exit cones. That's what we saw earlier on. We saw that gap open up in your prototype field between Reinhardt and Windrum. Well, Reinhardt, he disengaged his pit limiter there, right at the end of pit wall where the green cones are. Windrum, well, he ran about 20-30 meters further, so he lost a lot of time, but as it stands, Drew Reinhardt there is being followed closely by Roy Windham. Those two, well, you can't separate them at all.
No, all race long they've been fighting, and where Jason DeVries has come out is impressive to say the very least. As just looking at the timing here, he has got 14 seconds. That is live on mine, to 14.41 seconds between him and Robert Jackman. So staying out doesn't seem to have cost DeVries at all. He is just running laps that are just too fast to handle here, and we'll see what Brian Bennett will do as he comes in. He'll go take the chicane, so he is taking lap 61 to full completion under speed, and he will start lap number 62. Now looking forward in the field to Drew Reinhardt and Rory Windrum. They are, of course, going at it as they normally would. Douglas Beard has finally come in for his final pit stop of the day. That'll be 2 pit stops for him as he'll get fuel and tires. As Windrum and Reinhardt are now left to their own devices. Reinhardt leading that one for now. But judging by the battling we've had, Windrum is possibly, could possibly be faster at certain points, and we'll have to definitely find that out. Though right now, our leaders in the prototype division, it's George Sandman, has been all race long, dominating yet another race. And in the GT field, it's Brian Bennett, who is in the lead of the race right now, as Jason DeVries has come down pit lane. But DeVries did have the lead going into the pit. So, Rachel, we're lining ourselves up once again for a very interesting finish here, as we have got 18 minutes and 20 some odd seconds to go here in the Berryman Products 2 hours of Montreal.
Yeah, we certainly do, Cam, and well, it's going to be a very interesting final 18 minutes. Can Berryman and Windrum fight this one out? Who will win? Will we see Jackman catching DeVries? We thought the gap was too big, but anything is possible. First chicane there for Jackman, or second chicane for Jackman, I apologise. DeVries, well, he's exited the third chicane, so that gap is huge. I'm expecting that one to change in 18 minutes unless we see an issue, of course, but anything is possible. The real fight there is in your prototype field for that second and third step of the podium, and they're not going to disappoint.
No, and Brian Bennett is in, as he is pulling his Audi, that number 58 red and yellow Audi, into pit lane. We'll have to see here just where DeVries is. DeVries is going to pass, I think, to say the very least, as that's going to look like DeVries is going to get by relatively quickly here, as Bennett is just stopped on pit lane. He's hopefully waiting, but no, DeVries is going to have gotten well past before Brian Bennett even leaves the pit lane, as he is still on the throttle. DeVries is just coming out of corner number 2 right now, so DeVries, well, he's managed to pull it off, and Brian Bennett, well, he led for just a little bit, but that gap is still very large to say.
Cam?
Yes?
Would you say he DeVries'd past?
Hey, no.
Oh. That was funny, Cam.
No. Yeah, well, maybe a little funny. We'll go about 5 out of 10. We'll give you 50%.
Oh, okay. Okay, I can take that.
But,
I can live with that.
We can be happy with it. So, as George Sandman's now working his way around Brian Bennett, and at some point he'll have to come across Jason DeVries. You have to wonder, though, I mean, Bennett, he didn't take tires, but obviously less fuel. You'll have to see how the lap times all calculate in, and of course, you look back to Robert Jackman. Well, what could have happened? He'd been running in second all race long. He lost the lead around that first pit cycle, and now he's just hovering around in third. And honestly, I don't think Benjamin Perez is that far behind.
No, Cam, I don't think he is. He's closing in at the moment, but I'm sure it's going to be close enough when it counts. So keep an eye on him, but I'm not sure he's got time to make a difference.
Well, maybe not. Benjamin Perez, though, he had to basically get out of the way of Drew Reinhardt and Rory Windrum. That is certainly not going to be helping, as I have to say there are quite a few cars between Jackman and Perez, so perhaps not at all, as we are closing in on the final 15 minutes here. But to say Windrum and Reinhardt have been fighting all race long is would be well, the absolute truth here. Reinhardt has had the edge, Rachel, for most of this race here, but you know what? Rory Windrum has had quite a few good moments and quite a few good passes over the course of this race.
He certainly has, Cam, but of course I think they've both had their fair share of scary moments as they've been pushing to try and pass each other and fight. Got to keep an eye on both of those. Either one could make a mistake if it comes down to the wire, but it's definitely been the most entertaining battle we've had in this race today. I've been loving watching.
Absolutely, and the HPP series brought to us by, of course, well, HPP, and Berryman Products have been bringing us yet another great classic here in the chapter of prototype and GT cars, as these guys have been really racing very hard. We've seen quite a few good passes, to say, as the time has been winding down here. We are at about the 14 minutes, 50 some odd seconds. We're counting them down here as, well, they're coming through 6 and 7 once again right now. And just looking at these prototype cars, they have been, well, to say the very least, they are only 5 of them, but they've been putting on a very good show. And we normally see perhaps a few more prototype cars, but even with these minimal numbers, Rachel, it's still a very fun and entertaining product as we are going in through the hairpins right now.
Oh, it certainly are, Cam. I've had nothing short of entertainment from these guys, and well, we could have had 20 prototypes or 5. It's made no difference because the story has been around this 69 and 70 car. Awesome racing, and wheel-to-wheel prototypes, street course, you really can't beat that unless you would go back to, I think we were talking about IMSA in the 90s at Long Beach in the pre-race shows, so this is almost the same.
Yeah, Del Mar also comes to mind, the State Fair, as, well, we'll see here, perhaps, as Roy Windrum, in pursuit of Drew Reinhardt, will go on board with that Corvette C7R. We saw one lap from George Sandman in clean air. Well, let's see what it's like when you're chasing down the turquoise, black, and white number 69 prototype, and you're alongside Rory Windrum here for yet another lap of the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And we were able to see just like that, perhaps going on board gave him the edge as Rory Windham has managed to make that pass. Normally that doesn't work that way. When we go on board with somebody, there's at least a 78% chance that they end up flipped over. But luckily that hadn't happened there today, and actually Drew Reinhardt has just spun the rears coming off of corner number 3, so just like that, Rory Windham is come away with it, and he isn't going to be fairly secured in second position there. And Rachel, that was a fairly good pass that he has been setting up for a long time.
Oh, he's been working hard to try and catch. In fact, he had his fastest lap of the race only 8 laps to go. So Rory Windham really pushing hard here, Cam, but pushing hard in a way we didn't see earlier on. Thankfully, the car's been in a straight line rather than sideways like it had been when they were battling earlier. But great move, textbook pass, and well, you have to deal with the GT traffic fairly quickly now if he wants to keep this lead.
Yeah, and I think Drew Reinhardt is dealing with some tire issues. I think that car perhaps had used up what rubber it had trying to defend the position away from Rory Windham, and either it's just overheated right now and waiting for it to be cooled down, or he has used up what rubber he has had as Rory Windham was able to just keep the pressure on enough to cause a couple of mistakes. And overall, though, he has managed to come away with it here with just, and I mean just, 10 minutes to go here. George Sandman working lap number 71 as he cuts his way through this Montreal circuit, as he has been working his way pretty much unabated all race long. I mean, there was a little bit of a challenge early on, but he managed to clear that relatively easily. And then you look to the GT cars. You've got Jason DeVries and Brian Bennett. Well, now they aren't even in sight right now. I mean, they can see each other a little bit, but Brian Bennett has been losing out just a little bit at a time, and I don't think, even if he was managing to go faster, he would not catch up Rachel, given the time that we have here. I mean, 10 minutes, that's what, 4 laps?
And he is, we're looking at about the 4-lap mark at this stage, so it's going to be a pretty well, no. That'd be 6 minutes, so we're looking at least maybe 6-7 laps, depending on when George Sandman crosses the line, Cam. So it's still a lot to play for here, a lot of action yet to come. These guys, well, they've still got to finish this race. It could be 6 laps, it could be 1 lap. It doesn't matter if you put in more.
Well, certainly, and I think that a concrete barrier at 100 some odd miles an hour would be relatively unhealthy to the aerodynamic and motoring abilities of that car, but hopefully we won't see anything like that. We've come along just too far to see one of these cars ripped up in a late race incident, but just looking through it, though, Reinhardt has lost a bit of speed compared to Windham, but he hasn't absolutely given up the ghost, though. As they cross the line, the gap between Windham and Reinhardt is a second flat, and right now they're going around Doug Lyerly. Lyerly there, he's going to actually split the 2 prototype cars, and that's what you don't want to see when you're Reinhardt.
Certainly not. In fact, Reinhardt is stuck behind him, or was for turn 2 there, Cam, so he lost a lot of time.
Well, he absolutely did. That red and black number 70 prototype, just happier and happier to see those headlights from that C7 Daytona prototype that has been ahead of him for so long in this 2-hour endurance race, to just get a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller as time goes on. Now, though, to be fair, though, Drew Reinhardt did have the faster lap last time. It was only by 0.2 of a second. When you're trying to make up a large quantity of time, it is not going to necessarily be to your benefit. But for the most part here, just looking at is Benjamin Perez is in the wall barrier somewhere. I believe his BMW has had an incident.
There, Cam.
What's that?
That's the first chicane, Cam. He's gone straight off, actually.
Yes.
Cars, I believe, lost steering. No.
Didn't make the turn in.
He overcuts the entry, so straight off.
Yeah, just straight off. Now, that road does kind of cut all the way through to the other chicane, but we can't necessarily take that. That's very tired off and very walled off. It's for safety crews. As Perez, well, he just scooted it right and off away he went. He just reversed it out of there. But just looking once again, Rory Windham, he has done a 132.9 and Drew Reinhardt a 132.6. If Reinhardt strings a couple of those together, he's going to be in position to, fight for position.
He's already in range. In fact, he could be in draft range by the time we get to turn 10, the hairpin. He is right on the back of Windrum. Drew Reinhardt not ready to give this fight up.
No, not at all. And of course, if they keep doing this, that's going to be great for us. To say, as George Sandman is coming into the chicane just one more time. Sandman in that number 15 HPP prototype from the Orion race team. He is going to cross the start-finish line as he manages his lap number 73 in a 132.2, which is quite a ways faster than Windrum and Reinhardt. But at this point now, it doesn't matter. There's a 50-second gap between first, second, and third, and so second and third are going to fight out for that that middle step, I guess I should say, of position number 2 is Reinhardt. Well, he loses the rear end just a little bit again, but Windrum, well, you know, he can't really coast on his laurels here. He has got to keep pushing right on through. He has Robert Jackman ahead, and ahead of that it is James Fitzpatrick, and ahead of that there's going to be a slower prototype car of Corey Rowan. So perhaps we'll have to see here. Windrum, very aggressive in how he manages to attack that GT car, but it looks like Reinhardt's going to be able to easily get by, flashing his headlights.
He certainly is. He's going to try and make easy work of this one, Cam. To go into turn number 1 as well on one of the other GT cars, but not over yet for Drew Reinhardt. He's still pushing hard. Better luck with traffic this time around in turn 1 and 2. In fact, one of the GT cars getting off the track entirely. But Roy Windrum still not out of the woods yet. There's still a lot of time for this to change.
Yeah, still a lot of time as Windrum, he is working his way through the heavily wooded sections here as he goes past 5 into 6 and out of 7. As just looking through how everything has transpired here, Windrum, I mean, he's really pulled off a fairly good race, to say the very least. He has managed to save the tires and pit exactly when Reinhardt did. He should have it as long as he doesn't well, have a mistake, really, and I don't think he's going to, though. That car is starting to slide around quite heavily, almost as much as Reinhardt's was when Reinhardt was the one up in front.
Oh, to say the very least, Cam, it's been an exciting race between these two. They've really put this one on, and we saw them slipping and running around last time towards the end of a stint. They're doing exactly the same now, so this could go either way. We've seen them both make some fairly catastrophic mistakes in the half spins, so this is still all to play for.
Well, it is. Just one minor hiccup, and Reinhardt could be all over the rear end of Windrum's C7R prototype as he completes lap number 74 and getting on to 75 here with just 4 minutes and 30 seconds to go. And so just looking back to the GT field here, it is fairly straightforward. There's a 3-second gap between DeVries and Brian Bennett, and then between Brian Bennett and Jackman it's a 19-second gap, and then it's some 50 seconds between Jackman and Perez, 30 seconds between Perez and Hacker, 12 seconds between Fitzpatrick and Hacker, and then Doug Lyerly is hanging back in some 9 seconds off of Fitzpatrick. So everyone fairly split up in the GT field, but I have to say it is mostly due to the amount of racing that we've had in the GT field that has caused a couple of incidents that has really split up this field instead of people just splitting up on sheer pace.
You mean to say, Cam, we've had racing to racetrack? It's almost
Well,
unheard of, and around he goes.
Well,
Reinhardt loses it in turn 10, pushes too hard. That takes the pressure off Rory Windrum that he absolutely needed. Wow, that was surprising.
Well, I mean, it's been something we've been waiting for all race long, and ultimately, though, one of these guys was going to make that fatal mistake, and it just happened to be Drew Reinhardt, that number 69 prototype. And, well, I mean, it is kind of a bummer to see, but to say, Windrum, he has put on a very good race. He started in third. He'd been behind Drew Reinhardt literally all race long, except for a few moments, and now, well, Windrum, he seems to have secured second position.
That would seem to be the case, Cam. We just aren't sure yet. There's still a huge amount to play for. Anything could happen. Of course, it's looking likely he will secure that spot, but you could just never be too sure. This might not play out as they need it to, because we've seen them both get loose. We've seen pressure cause incidents for both these drivers, so we're just going to have to be really careful.
Well, well, careful indeed. I mean, you've got enough of a gap to where you can tiptoe your way around. You don't have to floor it. So it's just one of those things. You've just got to make sure you're connecting everything up. You're taking your corners. Don't coast. Coasting means that you take weird mile per hours into corners and you end up throwing yourself off. But either way, George Sandman, well, after an hour and 58 minutes, he is going to be coming through here on his lap number 77. I believe maybe, just maybe this time by, we are going to be hitting the white flag in this 2-hour event, of course, brought to us by Berryman Products. As just the whole of the race has been going fairly well, and for Sandman, and really no issues at all for that number 15 prototype.
Oh, to say the very least, Cam, George Sandman's had an incredibly good race. Just flawless, no fleet wrong whatsoever. He does this every week, though. We see this all the time from him in this series. George Sandman is the man to beat, and everyone is desperate to do so. That car, in great shape. The guys from Orion Racing bring in an awesome car every week, and well, they've got an awesome driver behind the wheel, so it ends up being a completely awesome package.
Well, it does, and alternatively, an awesome package is, of course, from Berryman Products. Since 1918, they have been selling all sorts of mechanical goodies for your automotive and anything else in the mechanical ways. As we start the final lap here at the Berryman Products 2 Hours of Montreal. Back in 1918, Waldo B. Pappy Berryman traded his prize-winning stud horse for a patented tire sealing formula. It's been going on ever since, as there are all sorts of mechanical goodies there, so check out Berryman Products. And of course, the car, of course, that's the sponsor on the leading car from the Orion Race Team, HPP pedals. I mean, some of the best CNC machined hydraulic pedals you can possibly get in the sim racing field. And just looking back to Rory Windrum and Drew Reinhardt, those two as well, also an absolute shout out to them, as they have been fighting hammer and tong all race long. That final spin from Reinhardt mostly sealing the deal, unless an incident happens for a Windrum, but that certainly could happen, but you know, I'm just not sure that will. Looking to the GT field, you have Jason DeVries, and after a hectic start where he was really hassled by a jump starter and then involved in an incident with that said individual as they went 3 wide into turn 1, he well, immediately promptly spun that Audi, and he has worked his way right back up through the field. And Jason DeVries, he is going to be in position 7 overall, first in GT, and Brian Bennett coming back from 10th. He is going to be working his way up and finishing up in his Audi. And Robert Jackman, oh, what could have been. Either way, George Sandman comes off with a final chicane, and he will floor it, and he will hit his way to yet another victory here in the HPP Simulation GT Series. The Orion Race Team gets another victory in the column, thanks to the well driving of George Sandman and his HPP-sponsored prototype. And Rachel, what a great race that Orion Race Team has had with George Sandman.
Oh, it certainly has been, but here's the context, Cam. Second place was in the final chicane, second last chicane, the third chicane even, I'll get numbers right eventually, when he won. That's how far back they were, half a lap. In fact, only now is Rory Windrum heading down towards the final chicane and the start-finish line. Take home that second step of the podium, right behind your class leader in the GT field. That is Jason DeVries there, coming home with the GT win for your GT division. Well, from pole, went to the back, has come back to the front again. DeVries takes the win for the GTD cars. And, well, Rory Windrum second. And very, very close at the end was Drew Reinhardt, who rallied back. Make a very good finish. Those two, oh, they can only be happy with how they've been driving.
Oh, absolutely, and very nice that they've managed to not make contact between each other. So very good running from them. Brian Bennett will be taking home second position ahead of Robert Jackman. Actually, no, he's not. Oh, so very close. I didn't see this. Brian Bennett had jumped out of fuel, and Robert Jackman almost came away with it. Holy cow. Looking at the final to the line here, they had basically run... I mean, there was thousands between the two. I have to say, Brian Bennett had run out of fuel coming off the exit of the chicane. Yeah, and Jackman was able to come up so very close, but Rachel, whew, that almost went into the lap of Robert Jackman, but Brian Bennett, well, he'll come away with second in the GT division.
Certainly will. What a great race we had there in the end, and exciting racing here today. Wow, Montreal never disappoints.
No, not at all. So either way, it looks like we will take a quick commercial break before we start looking at the results, unless we want to do the results first, depending on how Hugo Louis wants to do this. But either way, we'll see if we can get anybody in here for a commercial. All right, what the heck? We'll go through. We'll go through the results here in the HPP Simulation GT Series. So let the music cue up here, and of course the Berryman Products 2 hours of Montreal will go to George Sandman in 2 hours, 1 minute, and 11 seconds. He'll take it from pole to pole, and he will manage to come away with yet another victory here in the HPP Series. Following behind in the prototype division, a hard-fought battle went to Roy Windham, with Drew Reinhardt following in third. Douglas Beard will come home in fourth, with James Kruhula in fifth, and Corey Round coming home in sixth in the GT field. Jason DeVries will come home with it in the GT division, not in the prototype field, of course, but in the GT division, his Audi will carry him from the front to the back to the front, and he will come away with it just 4 laps down from the prototypes, which after 2 hours is nothing to shake a stick at. Brian Bennett, after running out of fuel, he almost loses it to Robert Jackman, but he will cross the line with feet to spare between his Audi and the Mercedes of Robert Jackman. Jackman, who had come home in third. Benjamin Perez coming home in fourth, with Christopher Hacker in fifth, Doug Lyerly in sixth, James Fitzpatrick in seventh, Phil Mishaga in eighth, Thomas Pomatico in ninth, Pyle Wildridge in 10th, Chris Allen in 11th, and Jared Jewell. Oh, what could have been. He was leading the race fairly comfortably and ended his race in the Armco barrier. Austin Harris was our first retirement, 70 laps down in his Audi. So, well, Rachel, that has been a fantastic race here at Montreal, and I think, well, any last thoughts before we head to our commercial?
Oh, incredible racing, Cam, as always, and wow, this circuit never disappoints. We always get great action here. Love watching what goes on, and honestly, can't wait for the next round.
No, I can't wait indeed. Should be in 2 weeks' time, I imagine. But either way, though, we're going to head to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back here on iRacingLive and RaceSpotTV for post-race interviews. Stick with us.
The 2016 iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series is all about change. New teams, new drivers, new tracks, even a new logo. And oh yeah, there's a brand new car. After 5 years of competition, we say goodbye to the Williams FW31 and we say hello to the McLaren MP430. But this isn't just a brand new car, it's a whole new ballgame. And with it, we bring new excitement, new strategies, new technology. For example, energy recovery and drag reduction systems. There's a new way of thinking about racing, and for all the drivers participating, it's back to the drawing board, wiping the slate clean in the ever-consuming pursuit of perfection. One little slip-up, one wrong move on track, one poor strategy call, and it's over. That's the difference between coming up short and becoming champion, and being $10,000 richer to boot. So yeah, change is in the air, but we're going to start getting answers on the 27th of February as the 7th year of iRacing World Championship competition kicks off. And you won't miss a thing, with every single race live on iRacingLive, coverage brought to you by RaceSpotTV. So join us fortnightly from 1:30 p.m. GMT.
Welcome back to the iRacing Online Championship HPP Series here, of course, today at Montreal. After 2 hours of hard racing, George Sandman has come away with it over Rory Rendham and Drew Reinhardt, who put on a great show in the prototype division. In the GT field, Jason DeVries came home with it over Brian Bennett, who barely sputtered across the line ahead of Robert Jackman for your podium in the GT division. Now, of course, we are going to have Jason DeVries in the booth with us in just one moment's time, but before we do that, we have to give a shout out, of course, to the RaceSpot staff, the RaceSpot TV crew, myself, Cam Walsh, Rachel Whiteford, Hugo Louis, and of course, all of our support staff and our cameras from Islam, Ivan Bolag, and of course, our overlay by And Warren Design. So, either way, let's get Jason DeVries from the from the Excelsior Racing team. Let's scoot him up here. There we go, somebody. So, Jason DeVries, you are, of course, piloting the Audi here today at Montreal, and it seems like that was a good choice. You qualified half a second ahead of the field, but take me through the start of that race.
Let's just call it lap 1 BOP.
Yes, well, it did happen though. 3 wide into turn 1 at Montreal never goes well, to say the very least.
Well, it doesn't go 3 wide if you don't jump to start, but I prefer the rest of the race from lap 2 on. That was a much more enjoyable experience for me and the rest of the field.
Yeah, to say the very least, you managed to come all the way back and through both the pit cyclings and just passing on the track. You managed to come away with it after 2 hours here. And to say the very least, I mean, there wasn't a ton of prototype cars, but Jason, either way, though, you managed to come home with it. And, I mean, it's Montreal. You don't normally see sports cars racing on it, but it's a fairly raceable track.
Yeah, it was fine. I was lucky enough that my team ran a 3-hour race here a couple of weeks ago, and I just had faith in the car. I knew the car was good. I knew what I could do with it, and I had experience with DPs, and it paid off. And hats off to Robert Jackman as well. Came in third. He ran the same race with me. I knew how strong that car was too.
Well, he almost came in second. As Brian Bennett ran out of fuel and sputtered across the line, but pit stop so very important here. You took tires on your first pit stop, but not on the second, and that was your intended strategy?
It seems to be the way to go, because you've got, in a race like this, with Sonoma and Laguna, you can run it on one stop, but on a 2-stop race, you've got to pick whether you want to do it on the first stop or the second stop. And if you short stint on your second stop, you're behind all the traffic, so you have to drive up through the field on old tires. And I just feel that, and based upon how these races have played out, changing tires in the first stop and doing the short stint on the end seems to be the way to go.
Well, seems the way to go indeed. It managed to pay off for you today here at Montreal. And before we cut you loose, Jason, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to or say thanks to out there?
Yeah, it's actually a big list. I'm going to try to keep it short. It's been about 9 months since I've last won. And, it's it's pretty tough when you're used to running well, and then things happen, and it just happens over and over for 8-9 months. And I just want to give a big thanks to my team who's stuck with me at Excelsior Racing Team. Jason Gerard, Danny Kane, Jason Fleishley, Billy Smith II, Kevin Binkley, and then all the guys that hang out with us in our team speak, our friends from Canada, Robert Jackman, Dave Hill, Matt Owens, Kevin Santana, Ross Booth, etc. I apologize whoever I forgot, but thank you to each and every one of you guys. It's really helped me out over this dry spell, and I really thank each and every one of you guys for everything you bring.
Well, and of course, we'll hopefully see you in the coming months in the Neo Endurance Series. That's where I normally see you, but you're done well for yourself here, to say the very least, coming home with the victory in the GT division. So it's been very fun to watch, to say, and we'll catch you next time, 2 weeks from now, I believe.
Something like that.
Something like that.
All I can say is the cold streak is over, and thank God.
Well, right there with you. So either way, though, we're going to go to our prototype division. Normally, we always talk about prototypes first, GT second, but you know what? We're just going to shake it up a little bit. But Rachel is going to be standing here with George Sandman, who after 2 hours came away with it.
Certainly did, and thank you, Cam. George, ask the normal interview, but what kind of fuel are you putting in that race car? Because that Orion Race Team HPP Simulations Corvette prototype is lightning fast every single week. What is your secret?
Oh, I'd like to share that information with you, but that's top secret.
You can tell me after the broadcast, but just in short, you are so rapid in this series. It seems to be the fight is always for second and third, as it was incredibly exciting today, but a good, clean race for you here today. No real problems. Traffic, not an issue. Tight track, I mean, how was managing the traffic and maintaining that gap?
Traffic today wasn't really bad. I thought it would be a little bit harder here at Montreal. It's a really tough track, hard on tires, hard on brakes. You just got to stay focused because the walls are right there, and that's all I would hope for, is just a nice, clean, incident-free race.
It certainly was that. You came away with the win, of course. Next round will be 2 weeks. Watkins Glen. How is Watkins Glen for your car?
A month.
Oh, a month. Sorry, a month's time. Sorry, not 2 weeks. But how is Watkins Glen going to be for your car? Is it? Are we expecting to see you in Victory Lane again?
Yeah, I'll be at Watkins Glen. I like that track. It's one of my favorites. I think some of the last couple races we have are some of my favorite tracks, so I'm really looking forward to them.
That'll be absolutely awesome. Thank you for joining us. Any sponsors you'd like to thank today, George?
Yes, I'd like to put a special shout out to Mark Hargett at HPP Simulations for sponsoring me. I'd like to thank my team, Orion Race Team, and thank you guys for putting on the broadcast, and thanks to iRock for putting on the series.
Awesome. Well, thank you, George. And Cam, back to you.
Well, always a pleasure to bring a great series like this to all of viewers out there. So I know there was a boatload of you guys watching, so of course you can always comment and like and all of those other things on our respective services. But for the most part, though, I'll just start wrapping it up here at Montreal, as it has been the Berryman Products 2 hours of Montreal here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. After 2 hours, of course, in the prototype field, George Sandman and the GT's Jason DeVries. So congratulations to those two. Special thanks to Rachel Whiteford and Hugo Louise sticking with me here for the HPP series. And we will hopefully see you all next time. So in about 1 month's time, on June 23rd, we'll be in Watkins Glen for another 2-hour race with GT action. Stick with us. And for all of your other special broadcast watches and needs, you can always stick with the iRacing YouTube page and RaceSpotTV. You'll find out everything that we're doing there, and you can go from there. iRacingLive is also a great resource, to say the very least. So for myself, Cameron Walsh, for Rachel Whiteford, and for Hugo Louis, we will see you all next time.